Hey guys, tonight we travel far so far that time itself feels like it's breathing around you. The air is heavy with dust and the smell of something new being born. Beneath a bruised orange sky, continents stitched together into one endless landmass. Wait in silence. You probably won't survive this, at least not as you are now, because the world you're about to step into doesn't even know mammals exist yet. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far our little campfire of night thinkers has spread. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Earth shudders as if trying to remember how to breathe again. We're standing roughly 252 million years ago, right after the worst catastrophe life has ever endured, the Permian extinction. It wasn't a bad day. It was a bad few million years. 90% of all species vanished, leaving behind a planet so quiet it probably echoed. The seas were poisoned, the skies dim, and the land cracked open by fire, and famine was nearly empty. But emptiness, as you'll see, is opportunity wearing an ash mask. You feel the heat rising from blackened plains. The air tastes metallic, thick with carbon dioxide. Volcanoes vast as mountain ranges are vomiting fire in what we now call the Siberian Traps. Each eruption lasts centuries, building plateaus of basalt that glow faintly in the twilight. The carbon they spew triggers climate chaos, endless summers, acid rain, and perhaps even methane bursts that boil oceans from below. If you ever thought modern climate change was bad, imagine one that melted glaciers faster than you can say oops. Yet amid this smouldering wasteland, life refuses to quit. You crouch beside a shallow pool and watch something that looks halfway between a salamander and a crocodile wriggle through the mud. These are the survivors' creatures that adapted by accident, by luck, or by sheer stubbornness. Tiny reptiles begin darting over the warm stones, their scales gleaming with mineral dust. They don't know it yet, but their descendants will one day command every ecosystem on Earth. You brush aside the brittle remains of a fern and the ground beneath vibrates with new footsteps. Reptiles called proterosuchids, basically crocodiles that took acting lessons, prowl the edges of drying rivers. They have long jaws and narrow, curious eyes. When they breathe, the air whistles faintly through nostrils perched high on their snouts. They are hunters, but the world is still too empty for true predation. Mostly they scavenge half-heartedly, patrolling for corpses that the heat hasn't yet stripped clean. Scientists still argue whether these early reptiles were cold-blooded or something in between. Their bones suggest a metabolism faster than that of modern lizards, but slower than mammals. Perhaps they lived in that evolutionary twilight, just warm enough to move quickly when the sun dipped low. A quirky tidbit. Some paleontologists think the colour of their scales might have varied with climate, dark in the cool mornings, pale in the noon glare, like prehistoric mood rings. As night falls, the volcanic glow paints the horizon red. The wind carries the faint hiss of gas vents and the distant crack of cooling rock. The Earth is unstable, unpredictable, but alive again. And you tiny observer would smell sulphur in every breath and feel each tremor through your bones. Far to the south, the supercontinent Pangaea stretches from pole to pole. Deserts bigger than modern oceans dominate its heart. Inland dunes whisper across entire horizons. Near the coasts, life experiments cautiously. Seed ferns return first, then ginkgo-like trees, and horsetails the size of telephone poles. Insects, resilient little anarchists of the biosphere, buzz back into business. Dragonflies with wingspans wider than your laptop skim over puddles that steam at dusk. They look like survivors of an alien apocalypse, and in a sense they are. This is the cradle of the Mesozoic era, the so-called Age of Reptiles. Though technically it begins not with dinosaurs, but with their distant cousins, small and unassuming. You'd barely notice them if one scurried past your foot. But give evolution time, 50 million years of it, and that humble scurry becomes a thunderous stride that shakes continents. For now, though, everything is still trial and error. A reptile here develops stronger legs and starts walking more upright, less belly-dragging, more swagger. Another evolves teeth shaped for slicing flesh instead of grinding leaves. It's as if nature is running auditions for future dominion. Who will claim the throne of this recovering world? You can almost hear the earth whispering, whoever can endure heat, drought and hunger will inherit all of it. Clouds drift low thick with ash and moisture. When they break, the rain is warm, tinged with acid. It hisses as it hits the ground, carving shallow rivulets into the baked soil. Life, stubborn as ever, follows those tiny channels. Plants root along their edges. Insects cling to their stems. Somewhere out there in the steaming twilight, a reptile lays an egg, soft-shelled, fragile and utterly revolutionary. Because eggs mean independence, no longer must creatures risk their young in open water. Now they can travel inland, set up shop wherever the sun hits hardest. That single adaptation will unlock the land forever, opening frontiers no amphibian could endure. You watch one of those eggs split. A small wet creature pushes free a few inches of trembling ambition. Its heartbeat is fast defiant. It blinks once, twice, and scurries into the ferns. You've just seen the beginning of the line that will lead to dinosaurs. No fanfare, no thunderclap, just a quiet birth in a world learning how to live again. Above lightning forks across the volcanic clouds. The Earth still looks wounded, but life has slipped back in through the cracks. It will take tens of millions of years for the stage to truly fill, but the script has been written. Extinction clears, evolution builds. As you settle down beside the glowing basalt watching the world's first reptilian dynasty rehearse for greatness, you can almost feel the future rumbling beneath you, heavy-clawed and patient. The next act is waiting for its cue. You wake to a world that smells like iron and pine resin, though there aren't really pines yet, just ancestors of what will one day become them. The air is drier now, the ground less volcanic. The chaos has quieted into rhythm. Here in the early Triassic, about 247 million years ago, the sun blazes down on a land stitched together by rivers that shimmer like liquid copper. You squint across plains the colour of rust, and there, darting between ferns, are the first true heirs of this new age, the Dawn Striders. They aren't yet the titans of your childhood imagination. No towering T-Rex, no lumbering long necks. These creatures are small, lean and quick, a whole society of ankle-high opportunists. You see one pause in the dust, Euparkeria, an archosaur all ribs and attitude. It stands almost upright, balancing on hind legs for a second like a lizard caught between two eras. The forelimbs twitch as though unsure whether to crawl or grasp. And then it's gone a blur across the baked earth. The word archosaur means ruling reptile, though none of them yet rule much. Still, they carry the blueprint for future empires. Their hips are changing, their lungs are efficient, and some may even have primitive air sacs like birds. Scientists still argue whether this innovation began here or much later, but it's a clever trick either way. Breathing that works like a set of bellows, keeping oxygen flowing, even when the animal exhales. You'd envy that if you were trying to jog through this scorched Triassic afternoon. The Earth feels experimental. Everywhere you look, life is tinkering. There's a long-necked reptile dragging itself between streams, Tanistropheus, its neck absurdly long for its body, like nature testing where the necks could stretch into new careers. Nearby, the world's first turtles shuffle across the sand, half-formed shells jutting awkwardly from their backs like unfinished armour. Even the trees are prototypes, horsetails rising like green cathedrals. Cycads with waxy leaves that shimmer under the brutal sun. You step carefully through this forest that's not quite a forest. The soil crunches beneath your feet, crusted with salt and volcanic minerals. You stop at a small clearing where something odd gleams, a patch of clay covered in tiny footprints. Each one is three-toed, pressed with a lightness that suggests the maker ran upright. A trackway frozen in time, one of the earliest clues that dinosaurs are coming. But for now, the dominant creatures are synapsids, your distant cousins, mammal-like reptiles with names like Lystrosaurus. They look like grumpy pigs with beaks. Somehow they've survived the apocalypse that killed nearly everything else, and they are everywhere chewing at scrubby vegetation and snorting through dusty nostrils. They dominate by sheer numbers, which, let's be honest, is also how we humans tend to win. You watch one Lystrosaurus pause beside a stream, its barrel chest rising and falling. The water's murky, the sky pale. Everything about this landscape feels temporary, like a rehearsal for better times. A dragonfly the size of your hand hovers overhead, its wings flashing gold. You wonder if it remembers the Permian, if any creature does. Night approaches fast in the Triassic. The temperature drops and a thin mist creeps along the riverbanks. You can hear soft rustling in the undergrowth, hunters moving with quiet precision. They're smaller than dogs, but their eyes glint with purpose. One of them darts out a Proterosuchus jaws snapping shut around an unwary amphibian. The kill is messy but swift. Then silence again. Even here, life wastes nothing. A quirky detail paleontologist studying Triassic soil layers have found pollen grains from early conifers mingled with strange microscopic bubbles, possibly remnants of trapped methane. It's a reminder that even then the climate was playing tug-of-war with catastrophe. Some models suggest the atmosphere swung between scorching drought and flash floods every few decades. Imagine trying to plan a vacation in that. The next morning, thunder rolls from somewhere beyond the horizon. You climb a ridge to get a better view. Before you stretches an inland sea shimmering beneath a heat haze. Along its shore, herds of Plesiosaurus, some of the first true dinosaurs, graze in slow motion. They're enormous compared to the scrappy predators you saw last night, 12 feet tall, long-necked with eyes that move calmly over the horizon. They eat ferns and low shrubs, their jaws working methodically, as though they have all the time in the world. And for now, they do. You can tell they're different. Their hips are built for power, their legs columnar. When one rears up to reach higher foliage, the ground actually vibrates. You realize watching them that balance and endurance are the secrets of the new age. Evolution has found a formula it likes, and it's going to remix it endlessly. Scientists still argue whether early dinosaurs like Plesiosaurus were warm-blooded. The bone structure hints at rapid growth, which would demand higher metabolism, yet isotope studies tell conflicting stories. Maybe they were something in between a metabolic dial turned halfway toward heat. Whatever the truth, they thrive where others falter. You rest in the shadow of a fallen tree trunk and listen. Somewhere in the distance, a predator calls a low, throaty sound, part hiss, part trumpet. The Plesiosaurus herd stiffens but doesn't panic. They're too large, too many. The hunter will look elsewhere tonight. And as dusk deepens, you notice the sky an impossible lavender fading to cobalt. Stars prick the dark, utterly familiar despite the gulf of millions of years. The constellations haven't yet rearranged themselves. Orion is still hunting, though. He won't have humans to name him for eons. It's strangely comforting. You feel small but connected, a temporary guest in a very long story. A breeze carries the scent of fern sap and wet clay. You stretch your hand across the ground and feel its warmth. Somewhere beneath your palm lies the pulse of a planet still rebuilding itself, each beat a new experiment, each failure a step closer to dominance. The dawn striders are out again, darting like thoughts at the edge of sleep. Their shadows flicker against the firelight, and you realize the world is rehearsing motion itself. Walk upright, run faster, breathe deeper, reach higher. Every step toward the future is being practiced tonight. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel the ground tilt forward into the next act, toward the age when these fragile creatures will rise from curiosity to conquest. You open your eyes to a sunrise the color of molten bronze. The air vibrates with heat before the day even begins, and the horizon ripples like a mirage. You've slept through a few million years, long enough for the Earth to grow restless again. The Triassic is now in full swing, and Patier, that single supercontinent, stretches endlessly beneath your feet like an ancient riddle written in stone. Here deserts sprawl wider than any modern ocean, bordered by ridges of red sandstone and cracked riverbeds that remember floods but rarely see them. It's a brutal testing world, and yet life is thriving. The once silent plains now echo with the shuffle and bellow of creatures competing for dominance. Every movement is a claim, every shadow a challenge. Welcome to the Triassic turf wars. You can hear the first contenders long before you see them. From a nearby marsh, a deep croak reverberates through the air, the sound of a Metaposaurus, a giant amphibian roughly the size of a small car. It hauls itself from the shallows, slick-skinned and weary-looking, like a toad that joined a gym but gave up halfway. It gulps at the heavy air, blinking its lidless eyes. Amphibians once ruled the wetlands of the Carboniferous and Permian, but here in the Triassic they're relics, powerful, yes, but out of step with the times. Because the reptiles are coming. You turn towards the low rumble, something moving with confidence, not the clumsy drag of an amphibian, but the deliberate weight of a predator that knows it belongs here. Apostasuchus emerges from the reeds, sunlight catching its crocodilian hide. It walks on 4 legs but can rear on 2 when it needs to, a design that screams prototype dinosaur. Its teeth flash, like ivory knives as it locks eyes on the Metaposaurus. The amphibian freezes. So do you. The strike is sudden, a blur of motion, the splash of red water, and then silence. Apostasuchus doesn't linger. It feeds efficiently, like it's done this 1,000 times. There's no drama, no cruelty, just the clockwork of survival. You might be tempted to call it savage, but this is evolution streamlining itself. Scientists still argue whether Apostasuchus was a true archosaur or a close cousin. Its skeleton suggests it walked upright most of the time, making it one of the top predators of its era. Think of it as a rehearsal for what's to come, an early draft of the T-Rex written in scaly shorthand. Further north, across the endless dunes, other forms are stirring. Herds of Plesiosaurus and Mosaurus graze among ginkgo groves, their long necks weaving through the morning haze. You can see the muscles ripple under their pebbled skin. They move in slow unison, a prehistoric ballet, choreographed by hunger and instinct. A hatchling stumbles, nearly trampled, then rights itself, letting out a high-pitched squeal that could melt even a reptilian heart if reptile ears had that sort of thing. Overhead, the first pterosaurs experiment with flight. Eudomorphodon, small-winged reptiles with fish-catching teeth glide from cliff to cliff. They are not yet the sky tyrants they'll become, but you can already sense ambition in their wings. One swoops low over the water, catching a silver flicker of prey, then vanishes into the glare. The sky is no longer empty. It hums with the sound of possibility. You step carefully through a dry ravine and find something strange glittering among the stones, a fossilized footprint with 4 toes on the front and 1 on the side, the mark of a Chindosaurus, an early meat-eating dinosaur. Only a few feet tall, fast bipedal and cunning, these little hunters are rewriting the rules. Their gait is balanced, their lungs efficient, and their tails act like counterweights. They can sprint, pivot, and leap in ways no creature before them could. Evolution clearly is having fun now. The Earth itself joins the chaos. Volcanoes still roar along Pangaea's seams, belching out greenhouse gases. Lightning forks across the horizon as dry storms whip through the valleys. When the rains do come, they're biblical sheets of water pounding the ground until rivers burst their banks and flood entire basins. You stand on higher ground, watching as herds scramble for survival. Some drown, others endure. A quirky tidbit, fossilized raindrops from the Triassic have been found preserved in ancient mudstone tiny craters that mark the tempo of a long-lost storm. Some are so well-defined that scientists can estimate the atmospheric density of the time by their depth. Yes, we've literally measured how heavy ancient rain once fell. Spoiler, it hit hard. Night falls like a curtain of indigo. Across the landscape the heat fades and strange sounds rise. Insect chirps, the croaks of amphibians, and deep resonant calls of reptiles form the planet's first orchestra. You sit by a stream reflecting the twin light of moon and volcano, and you realize that this world, for all its violence, feels balanced, each life feeding another, each extinction paving the way for the next. In the dark, a small creature scuttles near your foot. It's no bigger than a rat with whisker-like scales and alert eyes. A cynodont, your ancestor, though it doesn't know it. Warm-blooded, probably furry and nursing its young, it's a whisper of the mammalian dawn. You could reach out and stroke its back, but it would bite you. That's how progress works. Scientists still debate whether cynodonts like this one were nocturnal because of dinosaur competition or simply because the night was cooler. Either way, evolution is quietly plotting its long game. The mammals will wait tucked in the shadows while the dinosaurs take their turn in the light. And so as you lie back against the cooling rock, the night sky shimmers with unfamiliar constellations. The air is full of potential energy, like a coiled spring waiting for release. Insects hum around your ears. Somewhere nearby, a predator hisses softly before slinking away. You feel the pulse of the planet beneath you, a slow tectonic heartbeat that has survived disaster, adapted, and begun to dream of giants. Because from this brutal, beautiful chaos will rise the architects of the next 150 million years. The stage is set. The actors have entered. The curtain is lifting. And you're still here listening to the Earth's rehearsal for greatness, the slow crescendo, before the thunder truly begins. The air smells like warm dust and resin. You blink awake beneath cycades that sway gently in the early morning breeze, their fronds brushing against each other with a sound like slow applause. Somewhere in the distance, a deep rhythmic thudding begins soft at first, then heavier, until you realize it's not thunder. It's footsteps. You climb a ridge of red clay to see the horizon trembling. Below you, a herd of Plesiosaurus moves across the plain necks, swinging in slow arcs as they feed on ferns. Each step lands with the deliberate weight of confidence. The world has new kings now, and you're looking at them, the first true dinosaurs to rule the land. The sun catches on their glossy hides, reddish-brown, mottled, with pale streaks where the dust doesn't cling. Some scientists believe their skin carried primitive pigments that helped regulate heat, while others suggest faint patterns camouflage or display no one knows. Scientists still argue whether early herbivores like Plesiosaurus lived in herds for protection or simply congregated where food was abundant. Either way, the scene before you feels organized, deliberate life finally finding rhythm after millions of years of chaos. You descend closer. The ground is soft beneath your boots, packed with fresh tracks. Nearby, a colaphysis darts from shadow to shadow, a lean 2-meter predator quick as a thought. Its bones are hollow, its lungs efficient, and its brain large for its size. You can almost see curiosity in the tilt of its head. For every giant here, a hunter lurks lean and hungry. When one of the smaller Plesiosaurus strays too far from the group, the colaphysis pack moves like a whisper. There's no roar, no cinematic build-up, just motion a blur of tails, claws, and timing. The kill is over before the herd even notices. One of the predators lifts its snout streaked with red and stares right at you. It's not hunger you see in its eyes, it's calculation. The first spark of the cunning that will define the dinosaur's reign. The world around you hums with heat. The rivers run thick with sediment stained ochre by iron, and the air ripples above cracked flats where lizards and insects bake themselves into temporary fossils. Trees rise like pillars in a vast cathedral of steam. Cicadas buzz, probably not the same species, but the same idea. Some things in nature never go out of style. A quirky tidbit paleontologists once found a colaphysis fossil with smaller bones in its ribcage, possibly from another colaphysis. For decades it was described as proof of cannibalism, the earliest recorded case of a dinosaur eating its own kind. Later reanalysis suggested those bones belonged to a different species, maybe just dinner rather than family. Still, the myth stuck. Dinosaurs, the original workplace cannibals. You follow the predators as they vanish into the fern undergrowth. The air cools, slightly scented with sap. Tiny beetles scurry across your boots. Overhead, primitive conifers stretch up with their branches thick and glossy. The sound of the world is changing too, not just the hiss of leaves or the growl of hunters, but the rhythm of life itself. Evolution is accelerating. The reptilian sprawl of the Permian has given way to the upright stride of the Triassic. Every creature here walks with its chest lifted and its lungs fuller. When you walk among them, you can sense that balance, the pull between past and future. The amphibians are fading, the mammals are hiding, and the dinosaurs are building the blueprint of dominance. You reach a riverbank where the Plesiosaurus herd drinks. The water reflects their long necks like the columns of a temple. Small fish dart beneath the surface, coelacanths living fossils even then. A hatchling slips on the mud, chirps softly, and its mother lowers her head in what almost looks like concern. You wonder if that's projection, or if empathy has roots deeper than we think. Scientists still debate whether dinosaurs could express complex social behavior. Some fossils show adults circling nests guarding eggs. Others hint at pack hunting or communal nesting grounds. Perhaps care and cooperation aren't human inventions after all, they're echoes from a far older code written into bone. The sun climbs higher. Heat distorts the air until even the horizon wobbles. You squint toward a canyon carved by ancient floods and see dust rising. Another herd, this one larger. Between the shimmering waves of heat, something stirs. Placerious, tusked herbivores from a vanishing lineage of proto-mammals lumbering toward extinction. The dinosaurs ignore them. The old rulers are fading into memory, and no one sends a farewell card. The ground trembles again, not from footsteps this time, but from the earth itself. You turn to see a volcanic plume blooming on the horizon. The world reminds its tenants who really owns the lease. The ground here is thin, restless. Magma lurks not far below. Ash begins to fall light, soft, almost pretty. You brush it from your hair and it smears like soot. Volcanoes were the architects of this world. They destroyed, but they also built, fertilizing the soil with minerals shaping valleys and painting the sunsets that would have made even the dinosaurs stop and stare. The same forces that once ended life now sustain it. It's a cosmic joke that never stops running. As the light dims through the ash haze, you find yourself thinking about how fragile this balance is. The dinosaurs don't know it yet, but they're living on borrowed luck. Every species is ours included. The difference is they don't worry about it. They eat, mate, grow, and move on. There's a strange peace in that, the kind you can almost envy. The day fades to rust and violet. You sit beneath a conifer and listen to the low murmurs of the herd bedding down. Somewhere across the plain, the predators call to one another, a sound that echoes through 230 million years of memory. The first kings of the Triassic have claimed their thrones not through brilliance or compassion, but through sheer adaptability. They don't just survive the chaos, they make it their kingdom. And as you close your eyes, the ground hums beneath you steady and strong. The planet has found its rhythm again. The drumbeat of the Mesozoic is just beginning. The morning begins with silence so deep you can almost hear the world holding its breath. The sky glows pale orange, washed clean by a recent rainstorm. It feels like calm, but in deep detachim calm is often the drumroll before another catastrophe. You're now standing near the end of the Triassic, about 201 million years ago, and the planet is about to pull one of its favourite tricks, hitting the reset button. You can see it in the air. The horizon trembles with heat shimmer, yet the sun seems dimmer somehow, its light filtered through a haze of volcanic gas. Far-off fissures tear through the landscape like scars reopening. This is no local eruption, it's global. The Central Atlantic magmatic province is waking up, and with it, the world begins to burn again. Molten rock gushes across what will one day be Africa, South America, and North America, splitting Pangaea into pieces. For thousands of years, lava fountains rise higher than skyscrapers, releasing enough carbon dioxide to warm the planet faster than any species could adapt. Oceans turn, acidic oxygen levels plummet, and the air grows heavy with the taste of ash. You walk through forests suffocating under this invisible weight. The ferns curl at the edges, their leaves coated in soot. Insects fall mid-flight, their tiny wings sticky with sulfur. Streams turn milky with dissolved minerals, and in the distance once lush plains now stretch barren, scattered with carcasses of creatures that ruled just yesterday. Placaria's gone, giant amphibians gone, even many of the proto-dinosaurs collapse under the chaos, but not all. In this apocalypse, luck chooses sides again. Down by a dried riverbed, you spot movement, a small wiry predator with long hind legs and bright unblinking eyes. It's a Coelophysis, or maybe one of its later cousins, lean and tireless. Its nostrils flare as it sniffs the scorched wind. When it moves, it doesn't walk, it flows. Hollow bones' fast metabolism and efficient lungs give it the edge. It sprints across the baked plain as if the heat were an ally rather than an enemy. Scientists still argue what exactly caused the Triassic extinction volcano's climate shock, or perhaps even a cosmic impact. Whatever it was, the result is the same: roughly 3 out of every 4 species vanish. But the survivors, mostly dinosaurs and their ancestors, the deck reshuffles and somehow their hand just got stronger. A quirky tidbit: the sheer volume of lava released during this period could have paved a highway around Earth hundreds of times. Imagine the smell, sulfur-scorched vegetation minerals, and despair. A global barbecue without an invitation list. You trek through what used to be a tropical forest. The trunks are now blackened spires, each one cracking quietly as it cools. Between the bifolae, like tiny pilot lights, ferns pushing through, ash insects, reappearing lizards sunning themselves on warm stone. The world is wounded, but already rebuilding. And there among the debris, you see footprints, 3-toed, evenly spaced, confidently pressed into the soft mud. The stride is long, upright, balanced. Dinosaurs, true dinosaurs, have inherited the earth. You follow the trail up a slope where the air feels cleaner. The land opens into rolling plains of young growth. Herds of Plateosaurus still graze here, fewer but tougher. You spot a Dilophosaurus stalking between the shadows, its twin crests glinting in the sunlight like polished bone. Its gaze fixes on a smaller reptile, a quick dash, a flash of claws and silence. Everything about it says apex. It doesn't just survive this new world, it thrives on it. The volcanoes keep burning for centuries. Acid rain scorches the surface, seas bubble with carbon, and yet through it all the dinosaurs expand. Herbivores stretch, taller carnivores grow sharper, and some begin experimenting with feathers, a strange evolutionary quirk whose purpose remains debated. Insulation, display, camouflage. Scientists still argue whether early feathers were used for thermoregulation or courtship. Either way, the first soft whisper of plumage catches the Triassic sun. At night, the sky glows faintly red from distant lava flows. You can hear the low, endless murmur of the earth venting its anger. It's hypnotic, like listening to the planet exhale. The stars seem muted, blurred by dust. And yet somewhere beneath this heavy atmosphere, life is planning its next empire. You rest beside a stream that somehow survived the chaos. The water is warm, slightly acidic, but clear. A frog croaks proof that not everything vanished. Nearby, a small dinosaur nest lies half buried in the mud. You brush away ash and find a clutch of eggs delicate as porcelain. The shells shimmer faintly, a chalky white beneath the grey dust. You imagine the warmth of the mother's body against them, the way life insists on continuity, even when the universe keeps hitting delete. A few feet away, one egg cracks. A wet, trembling creature pushes its snout into the world. Its eyes blink against the dim light and it lets out a faint squeak, tiny but defiant. The sound is almost absurd against the backdrop of volcanic thunder. But there it is, the future making its entrance. You lean back and exhale. The air tastes metallic but alive. In a few million years, these fragile hatchlings will inherit the Earth entirely. The old world has burned away, leaving only the adaptable, the quick, the uncomplaining. Dinosaurs are no longer the curious newcomers, they are the architects of the next 50 million years. A gentle breeze carries the smell of rain and smoke. You watch it move across the plains, lifting ash from the soil, spreading seeds in its wake. Even destruction, you realize, is a kind of gardener. You tilt your head back and catch the faintest glimmer of starlight through the haze. Somewhere far away, continents are drifting apart, pulling new oceans into being. The Earth, restless as ever, begins its next chapter. And in this new dawn amid the ruin and renewal, you can almost hear the first heartbeat of the Age of Dinosaurs, steady and certain, echoing through the stone beneath your feet. The kings have arrived. The air feels lighter, now cooler, almost forgiving. You open your eyes to the early Jurassic, a world freshly washed by time. The scars of the Triassic extinction have healed into fertile plains and forests. Rivers run clear again, cicadas hum, and the first birds of dawn trill in voices not yet perfected. The sun rises golden across a landscape bursting with confidence. Evolution, it seems, is in a particularly creative mood. You're standing at the edge of what will one day become Africa. Though the continents still cling together like siblings unwilling to say goodbye. The great supercontinent Pangaea is beginning to split, and with that fracture comes diversity, new coastlines, climates, and niches to fill. It's as if the Earth itself is stirring a giant pot of possibility. Below you the land moves, not trembles, moves. The tremor you feel is the march of herds heavy-footed and endless. A parade of long-necked volcanodon plods across the plains, each one stretching higher than a giraffe. Each exhale a warm gust that fogs the morning air. You could walk beneath their bellies without ducking. Their tails sweep behind them like living whips, keeping time with the rhythm of the earth. Nearby smaller plant-eaters, Solidosaurus and early stegosaurs, graze in clusters, armoured backs glinting under the new sun. Plates of bone rise from their spines like jagged sails, some flushed pink as blood pumps through them. Scientists still argue whether these plates acted as protection, temperature regulators, or flirtatious display. Perhaps all three. Nature rarely wastes a good design. The world has divided itself neatly now, herbivores with bulk and armour, predators with speed and teeth. Evolution has started running the experiment of opposites. You walk through the grass crunching ancient pollen underfoot as distant roars echo from unseen valleys. It's not chaos anymore, it's choreography. Across a river valley you spot a pair of Dilophosaurus, the twin-crested predators of the early Jurassic, stalking in tandem. They're taller than a man, sleek and balanced perfectly on two legs. When one pauses, the other mirrors the movement exactly as if rehearsed. A gust of wind reveals the faint shimmer of colour along their crests, red, maybe orange. Scientists think those thin bones were covered in keratin vivid enough to flash warnings or invitations. Fashion and function even back then. They stop. Ahead a herd of Massospondylus grazes lazily near the water's edge. The predators lower their bodies' muscles, tightening beneath striped skin. You crouch behind a fern and hold your breath. The ambush is textbook if textbooks existed. One Dilophosaurus charges head-on, the other flanks wide. The herd scatters in panic and a young one stumbles. The predators close in efficient, merciless, beautiful in their precision. No waste, no cruelty, just the mathematics of hunger. When it's over, they feed quietly, occasionally lifting their heads to scan the horizon. You feel their confidence. The age of apex hunters has truly begun. A quirky tidbit bite marks found on fossil bones suggest Dilophosaurus sometimes scavenged rather than hunted. It seems even prehistoric royalty wasn't above takeout. As the day warms, you follow the herds uphill toward higher, cooler ground. Ferns give way to ginkgo groves. The air smells clean, full of oxygen. You pass a patch of volcanic soil littered with strange rocks, dark, porous, lightweight. Pumice. When you pick one up, it almost feels like bone. Nearby a hot spring steams, fed by deep faults below. The earth never really stops simmering, it just changes recipes. You pause to rest, listening to the forest hum around you. Cicadas buzz, reptiles chirp, a dragonfly lands briefly on your sleeve, its wings flashing like stained glass. You feel for a moment like the planet itself is breathing with you. But even in peace competition simmers. The herbivores are getting larger, the predators smarter. This is the era of specialization. Some creatures take to the trees, others to water, and still others, like the first flying reptiles, to the skies. Above you, a Dimorphodon flaps awkwardly from branch to branch, its wings stretched between elongated fingers. Its eyes glint with intelligence. It pauses to watch you, head tilted, as though wondering which category you belong to. Scientists still debate whether these early pterosaurs were cold-blooded. Fossilized impressions suggest thin fur-like filaments, possibly for insulation. If that's true, they might have been warm-blooded pioneers, proof that the sky rewards those who can keep their engines running hot. By afternoon, the sun burns white and merciless. You take shelter beneath a cycad, sipping water from a stream so clear you can see tiny fish darting below the surface, survivors from an age when reptiles were just getting started. Somewhere in the distance, a boom of thunder rolls across the plain. You look up, expecting a storm, but the sky remains blue. The sound comes again, deeper, longer, vibrating through your ribs. Then you see it. A volcanodon raises its head, trumpeting to another herd across the valley. The call echoes like a foghorn through the prehistoric air. Communication, real purposeful sound carried over distance. You can feel it in your bones. It's not just noise, it's language beginning to evolve, vibration turned to meaning. A quirky note for the insomniac scientists among us researchers have studied the inner ear structures of sauropods and concluded they were tuned to low-frequency sounds like whales today. Imagine an entire planet humming with infrasonic conversation messages of migration warning and love traveling farther than sight. The light softens, shadows stretch long across the ground. You walk alongside the herds as the air cools their footfalls like drums beneath your steps. Dust rises in glowing swirls. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a volcano smolders, faintly sending a ribbon of smoke into the lavender sky. You find yourself thinking that this is what balance feels like on Earth. Neither dying nor panicking, but thriving, experimenting, breathing. Every creature knows its part. As night falls, fireflies appear, or their ancient equivalents flickering faintly among the cycads. You lie down, the air fragrant with the warm pine and sap. Far above, pterosaurs drift across the moonlight like living kites. One glides directly overhead, wings silent as thought. You close your eyes, the earth still vibrating faintly beneath you, the rhythm of survival steady and endless. The great division has been made herbivores and carnivores, air and land, hunter and prey, and for now, the balance holds. But somewhere in the warm dark beyond hearing, the earth is already dreaming of giants. The world has grown taller. You can feel it in the way shadows stretch across valleys that didn't exist a few million years ago, in how the air smells faintly of rain even before clouds appear. The Jurassic has reached its golden middle act, lush, loud, alive. You wake beneath a sky the colour of deep turquoise, a sky so wide it feels like an ocean turned upside down. And somewhere in that great blue sea above you, the sound begins a slow, rhythmic thunder that isn't thunder at all. The giants have arrived. You climb a slope blanketed in fern and moss, your feet sinking slightly into damp soil. At the crest, you look down and see an entire forest moving. Not the trees, though the wind sways them, but the land itself, trembling under the march of sauropods. Brachiosaurus diplodocus, Apatosaurus, names you might remember from childhood when they were toys and myths. But here they are neither. They are cathedral-sized facts. One Brachiosaurus passes near enough that its shadow covers you completely. Its neck rises like a tower vertebrae stacked in impossible elegance muscles, coiling and releasing in waves. Its eyes, small, gentle, almost melancholy, glance down as if to acknowledge your existence, then move on. When it exhales, the gust smells faintly of wet leaves and fermentation. You realize you're breathing air that's already been through a living mountain. Scientists still argue whether Brachiosaurus could raise its neck vertically or held it more like a giraffe's incline. Either way, the result is the same reach: everything, fear nothing. These titans can clear a tree line in an afternoon. Forests regrow slower than they eat, and yet the earth indulgent keeps feeding them. Across the plain, herds of smaller sauropods graze young ones with necks still short, learning the language of the herd through low resonant calls. Each bellow vibrates through the ground, a bass note deep enough to feel in your chest. Communication for creatures too large to whisper. Some scientists believe these low-frequency sounds could travel for miles, connecting herds across entire valleys. A prehistoric Wi-Fi of grumbles and hums. You sit by a stream watching one of the giants drink. The surface trembles under the weight of its movement. Dragonflies land on its hide oblivious to scale. The world around you hums with equilibrium predators keeping to the shadows, scavengers lingering for leftovers, plants thriving in the churn of dung and decay. It's a perfect system, gross but perfect. A quirky tidbit: studies of fossilized sauropod dung suggest that their diet helped spread plant life across continents. Their digestive systems were essentially mobile compost factories. You're standing in the middle of the world's first large-scale agricultural experiment powered entirely by stomachs the size of hot tubs. But the peace isn't total. From the ridge beyond the valley, something watches. Allosaurus, the terror of the Jurassic. It stands motionless, blending into the heat shimmer, eyes locked on a young sauropod straying from the herd. Its mouth opens slightly, revealing rows of teeth, curved like carving knives. You feel the air change, charged tense, waiting. Then with a sound like the world-cracking Allosaurus charges. Dust flies. The herd bellows. You duck behind a fallen log as the predator leaps its claws, slicing the air. The attack is over in seconds, one slash to the neck, a burst of red mist, and then chaos as the herd thunders away. The ground quakes. Branches snap. You press your hands to the dirt, feeling the vibrations pass through you like a drumbeat from another era. Scientists still debate whether Allosaurus hunted solo or in coordinated packs. Its bones suggest strong neck muscles, ideal for the bite and tear method, essentially soaring through prey, using its own body weight. Efficient, brutal, beautiful in the kind of way that gives you goosebumps. The carcass doesn't go to waste. Smaller predators creep in, followed by scavenging Ceratosaurus vultures of their time. Flies swarm. Within hours, the scene that seemed catastrophic becomes simply another part of the living machine. Life consumes life. Balance is restored. The sky begins to shift. Clouds gather high, thin cirrus that glow gold at the edges. A warm wind rises from the west, carrying the scent of ozone and wet bark. You wander through the forest as the light deepens, stepping carefully over roots thick as your arms. Fern spores dust your boots. In the distance, frogs begin to croak their calls, echoing off trunks that rise like ancient pillars. Everywhere you hear life's confidence. Cicadas buzz. Drosaurs glide overhead, wings slicing the air with effortless grace. The forest canopy hides creatures you can't see, but can imagine small mammals scurrying through leaf litter, lizards flicking tongues, beetles humming in the damp air. Even the silence between sounds feels full. You come to a clearing where a fallen tree lies rotting. Its bark has been stripped, its insides hollowed into a miniature world of fungus and moss. A small dinosaur, Compsognathus, emerges from the undergrowth no bigger than a chicken. It pauses head cocked, then darts forward to snap up a lizard. For all the giants above, it's these little creatures who keep the gears turning, predators, scavengers, or cyclers. The Earth's unsung accountants. A quirky detail fossilized remains of Compsognathus show tiny clawed fingers delicate enough to grasp insects. Some evidence even suggests faint proto-feathers along its arms and tail. You're looking at the blueprint for the bird still wearing the uniform of a hunter. Rain begins to fall, not the acidic storms of old, but clean, fresh rain. It patters on your shoulders, hissing softly against the ferns. The sauropods lift their heads to the sky, eyes half closed as if savoring it. You can almost hear the earth sigh. As evening settles, you watch the herds moving toward the horizon, framed by the afterglow of molten gold clouds. Their silhouettes are impossibly grand necks swaying like ships at sea. Each footfall lands with authority, a slow percussion that feels eternal. The land of giants has found its stride, and as you sit in the wet grass listening to the distant calls echo through the mist, you can't help but think this is what domination sounds like, not roaring chaos, but steady rhythm. The earth for once feels sure of itself. The age of giants has truly begun. You can hear them before you see them. The low, uneven thrum of something powerful, alive and hungry. The air smells of wet soil and iron, of storms still trapped beneath the horizon. The giants may own the day, but the night and the shadows belong to others. Welcome to the reign of predators with attitude. The sun creeps over the ridge and pours molten light onto a scene that looks almost choreographed. A trio of Allosaurus moves through the valley, grass, heads, low tails, level each step synchronisode. They're smaller than the sauropods, but far from small, 6 meters of coiled muscle and ambition. When they stop, even the air seems to hesitate. You crouch behind a fallen log and watch them move predators from a different mold. They don't just rely on brute strength, they plan, Scientists still argue whether Allosaurus hunted cooperatively or merely tolerated each other around a kill, but the evidence, a tangle of overlapping trackways and bite-marked bones, suggests coordination. Call it teamwork, call it opportunism, call it dinner theatre. The trio circles a herd of Stegosaurus grazing nearby. The herbivores are armed to the teeth, or rather to the tail. Their rear spikes, the famous thagomizers, gleam in the sunlight like polished spears. Their plates rise in double rows down their backs, flushed pink with blood as warm morning air fills their vessels. Scientists still debate their function, defense, thermoregulation, or maybe prehistoric flirtation, because nothing says romance like vascular armor. The Allosaurus stalk closer. One steps on a twig. Snap. Instantly the Stegosaurus swing their tails. The air whips with the sound of muscle and bone slicing space. A spike tears through one predator's thigh. Another leaps back, hissing. The herd begins to move, not fast but deliberate, forming a living wall of plates and spikes. The predators retreat into the tree line, frustrated but patient. Out here, victory is never guaranteed. You follow. As the Allosaurus limps to a stream to drink the wound, still fresh, the water swirling pink around its leg, it lowers its head to lap, then pauses, ears flicking toward the forest. A smaller creature approaches, Cretaceous, the rival carnivore, with a horn on its snout and a mean streak in its posture. It's built lower to the ground, all teeth and suspicion. The two predators lock eyes. Neither growls, neither needs to. The silence between them hums with potential violence. Then, in a moment of pure Jurassic comedy, a Dryosaurus darts between them, shrieking like a toddler stealing candy. Both predators freeze, startled by the audacity. Ceratosaurus lunges after it. Allosaurus just watches unimpressed. The forest absorbs them both. Nature loves drama, but it loves efficiency more. A quirky tidbit fossil evidence shows Allosaurus skulls had large sinuses that lightened their heads, allowing powerful muscles without excess weight, like the prehistoric version of a sports car's carbon fiber frame. Lightweight, lethal, and terrifyingly efficient. By midday, the sun has turned the valley into a shimmering furnace. You find shade beneath a ginkgo, its fan-shaped leaves trembling in the heat. The air buzzes with cicadas. Somewhere nearby, something enormous crashes through the trees. You hold your breath. It's not a predator this time. It's Camarasaurus, a sauropod built more compactly than Diplodocus, like the armored tank of the herbivore world. A dozen of them lumber past, their movements slow but purposeful. Their skin is patterned in dappled browns and greens, camouflage against the patchwork of forest and light. Each step sends tiny lizards scurrying. Predators and prey locked in a slow perpetual dance. For every innovation of attack, evolution counters with defense. You can almost hear it thinking. And yet even amid this tension there's beauty. A flock of small pterosaurs rhamphorhynchus, their tails tipped with diamond-shaped veins, swoop over the river, their calls sharp and bird-like. They dive for fish wings glinting bronze in the sun. One catches a silver flash, flutters up and perches on a rock to devour it. The sound of crunching bones echoes like delicate percussion. Scientists still debate how pterosaurs launched into the air. Some say they leapt on all fours. Others think they used their powerful legs like pole vaulters. Either way, the result is pure grace proof that flight isn't about wings, but about the stubborn desire to defy gravity. As dusk creeps in, you find yourself surrounded by sound. Frogs, insects, and the distant rumble of something vast moving through the underbrush. The predators begin to stir again. You hear low grunts, a few guttural calls, the forest's shift change. The day belongs to the giants, the night is for the hunters. A shape passes between the trees, long tail, sharp silhouette. Another Allosaurus, or maybe a new contender. The air is thick with tension and the scent of blood. The wind shifts, carrying a familiar, faintly sweet smell, decaying flesh. You follow it and find a carcass half buried in ferns. Flies swarm. A scavenger, feathered and wary, picks at the remains. Ornitholestes, a smaller predator with quick reflexes and sharp eyes. You realize the scene isn't chaos. It's clockwork. Nothing goes to waste. The hunters kill the scavengers, clean the decomposers, polish what's left until only bones remain. And even though someday will harden into stone, a record of perfect efficiency mistaken for violence. The night deepens. Stars blink through the canopy, their light trembling on the surface of the river. You lean back against the base of a tree, feeling its rough bark against your shoulders, and close your eyes. In the distance, something bellows, a sound so deep it feels like it comes from the planet's core. You smile faintly. The giants are asleep, but their world is awake. Every breath of wind, every rustle in the dark, every ripple in the river is a continuation of the same story: survive, adapt, repeat. A final thought drifts through your mind as the forest hums around you. Dinosaurs didn't just dominate by size, they did it by design. They turned survival into an art form, danger into elegance, brutality into balance. And as you drift towards sleep, lulled by the low music of predators and prey, the last sound you hear is the soft hiss of scales against fern leaves, evolution whispering, we're just getting started. The next morning feels different, quieter, higher somehow. The Earth has learned a new trick, it's filling the sky. You wake to the rush of wind that isn't wind at all. It's the steady, leathery flutter of wings. Look up. The heavens are alive. Above you, the first true rulers of the air trace invisible paths through the dawn. Pterosaurs. Not birds, not bats, but something entirely original: reptiles that decided the ground was overrated. The one nearest glides low over the cliffs, pteranodon wings outstretched to nearly 7 meters crest, slicing the air like a rudder. When sunlight hits the membranes, they glow translucent amber, a stained glass miracle powered by muscle. You stand at the edge of a high sea cliff overlooking a Jurassic lagoon. The world below sways with tide and reflection. Ferns and cycads grow right up to the waterline, their roots tangled with barnacle-encrusted driftwood. The surface ripples, something's moving just beneath it. A Rhamphorhynchus dives like a thrown spear, skimming the waves. It pulls out a small fish and climbs water droplets scattering in silver arcs. Graceful, effortless, and utterly alien. Scientists still argue whether pterosaurs were more like modern seabirds or something stranger. Their bones are hollow yet strong, their wings anchored to an elongated fourth finger. Some even had fuzzy coverings, pycno fibers like primitive fur hinting at warm-blooded metabolisms. Imagine that reptiles that might have cuddled for warmth. The evolutionary family tree is officially drunk. The sky is a constant motion picture. Smaller species, Anerognathus, flit through the forest canopy like bats catching insects mid-air. Their eyes glow red in the early light lenses adapted for low-light hunting. Higher up, larger Pterodustro skim the shallows, their comb-like teeth filtering shrimp from the water like prehistoric flamingos. Nature apparently has always loved weirdness. A gust lifts the warm scent of brine and algae from the lagoon. You crouch at the edge and watch as waves lap against fossil-studded rock. For a moment, the air fills with sound, shrill cries, overlapping calls, wing beats thudding like distant drums. It's chaos, but beautiful chaos. And then the noise changes. It sharpens, condenses panic. The flocks rise all at once, wings slicing the air in synchronized terror. You follow their gaze to the water. A massive shape breaches, sending spray 40 feet high. You barely have time to register the silhouette jaws longer than a bow tie's black and ancient. Pleurodon, the apex predator of the sea. Its teeth flash white before it crashes back beneath the surface waves, slamming the shore. The pterosaurs scatter, screeching. Somewhere far below, silence returns the kind that follows authority. A quirky tidbit: some estimates once exaggerated Pleurodon's size to over 20 meters, though modern science suggests around 6. Still, at 6 meters of muscle and bite force, that's plenty terrifying. And no, you probably wouldn't survive this one either. You watch the waves settle. The sunlight returns, dappling the water. A pair of Pteranodon circles again, cautious but curious, then resumes fishing. The world resets to calm within minutes, a reminder that even monsters are just part of the routine. Turning inland, you walk along the cliffs toward a dense forest. The air changes from salt to sweetness, the scent of resin, earth, and new growth. Ferns brush your knees, insects hum like electricity. You catch a glimpse of movement, a juvenile pterosaur hanging from a tree branch testing its wings. It flaps awkwardly, lets go, and for a heart-stopping second tumbles. Then miraculously it catches the air. Flight, the universe's favorite act of rebellion, accomplished by trial and error. Scientists still debate how flight first evolved among reptiles. Was it gliding from tree to tree, chasing insects, or leaping from cliffs into wind currents? Maybe both. Evolution rarely commits to a single plan. It prefers brainstorming sessions. The forest opens onto a riverbank where early crocodilians lounge half-submerged eyes fixed on nothing and everything. They haven't changed much in 200 million years. You lock eyes with one, its expression unreadable. It blinks slowly, unimpressed by the chaos above. You can almost hear it thinking, "Go ahead, fly all you want. I'll still be here when you fall." A shadow passes over you. You look up just in time to see the silhouette of a pterosaur gliding across the sunwings stretched like sails. For a moment it looks endless, a dark geometry cut into gold light. The world feels larger now, not because of size, but because of height. For the first time, life can look down at the earth from above. Evening falls like a sigh. The sky bleeds orange, then violet, then the deep blue of forgotten depths. The pterosaurs settle on cliffs and branches, folding their wings with practiced grace. The air smells of salt moss and quiet. From far away, the sound of the ocean rises again, steady, patient, eternal. You find a flat rock near the cliff's edge and sit watching the last flight of the day. A Ramphorhynchus glides past the setting sun, wings catching its light in fleeting bursts. It banks turns once, twice, then disappears into the horizon. The wind brushes your hair warm and constant. The stars begin to emerge, ancient, indifferent, familiar. You realize that for the first time the sky isn't just backdrop, it's habitat. The domain of wings has begun. A quirky note to end on fossilized pterosaur droppings. Yes, paleontology studies those too. Contain crushed shells and fish bones, proof that even the masters of the sky couldn't resist seafood. History, it turns out, is built on leftovers. You lie back and let the wind cool your face. The waves keep time with your heartbeat. Above, shadows sweep across the moonlight, ghosts of wings, still practicing their endless ballet. The ground has had its kings, but tonight you realize the sky has found its gods. The morning smells of salt rot and sunlight, an impossible combination that somehow feels ancient and alive. The sea stretches out before you, a glassy expanse tinged green and gold, hiding a world far stranger than anything on land. You've spent nights watching dinosaurs thunder across plains' wings, carving up the skies. But now you're about to descend into another empire, one older, colder, and infinitely deeper. Welcome to the oceans of monsters. You wade into the shallows, the water cool and silky against your legs. The surf murmurs over smooth stones, each wave whispering secrets of time. A shadow moves beneath the surface, then another. You freeze. The first of them appears an ichthyosaurus, sleek and fast, breaking through the water like a silver torpedo. It exhales sharply through its nostrils, sending a mist into the air before diving again with an elegant flick of its tail. You follow its movement, marveling at the efficiency of its design. It looks like a dolphin built by a reptile engineer, big eyes for the dim depths, flippers like oars and a vertical tail fin for thrust. Scientists still argue whether ichthyosaurs evolved warm blood to maintain those high speeds in cold seas. Either way, they're endurance champions, marine predators that can hold their breath longer than a modern whale. Deeper out, something larger glides through the sunlit water, Dipleurodon, jaws lined with conical teeth, perfect for catching fish or you if you're not careful. It moves with terrifying grace, each stroke of its fins cutting through the sea like a knife through silk. For a moment you catch its eye, a black void surrounded by gleaming white scars, and you know instantly you're not the apex here. A quirky tidbit, the bite force of Dipleurodon could crush bone like paper. Some paleontologists estimate it could tear a 10-foot prey animal in half with one bite. It's not malice, it's efficiency, the oldest survival currency there is. The ocean, though, isn't just a theatre for predators. It's a whole civilization unto itself. You swim, or rather let the current carry you past coral reefs the size of city blocks. They glow faintly under the filtered light, alive with tiny shells and tube worms. Ammonites drift among them, their spiral shells glimmering like nautilus jewelry. Some are small enough to fit in your palm, others the size of car tires float slowly through the currents. You brush past one and feel its smooth, pearly surface. Inside, a creature as strange as it is ancient, a soft-bodied mollusk that's been gliding through time since before the dinosaurs dreamed of walking. Ammonites are nature's spiral signature, showing up in every corner of prehistory like an artist's recurring theme. The deeper you go, the quieter it gets. The light dims and the water grows colder. Suddenly, out of the darkness, a shadow bigger than any you've seen so far glides past. Plesiosaurus. Long neck paddle fins, serene as a ghost. Its head moves side to side, scanning, tasting the water, with senses sharper than any sonar. You stay still as it passes 30 feet of silence. When it turns and vanishes into the gloom, the water feels emptier, lonelier, older. Scientists still debate how plesiosaurs use their long necks. Some say they hunted like herons, darting at fish with lightning precision. Others believe they used them to sneak up on schools of prey approaching from below like shadows. Whatever the method, it worked for nearly 40 million years. You kick upward toward the light again. The surface ripples above you like a mirage, and when you break through, the sound hits waves with the cries of pterosaurs diving for fish. The sky and sea are in constant dialogue, one feeding the other. On a rocky ledge nearby, a pteranodon lands awkwardly, fish dangling from its beak. It gulps it down in one motion, then spreads its wings to dry feathers, or rather the reptilian version of them, shimmering faintly. For all its grace in the air, it's clumsy here, like a pilot forced to walk. You can't help but smile. A quirky note, fossilized stomach contents of ichthyosaurs have revealed fish bones, squid hooks, and occasionally ammonite shells. That means even the most graceful swimmers had messy diets, proof that evolution doesn't demand table manners. By afternoon, the sea has turned reflective, mirroring clouds drifting lazily overhead. You float on your back, letting the waves rock you, eyes tracing the coastline where forests meet water. This is the Jurassic at its most confident. Every niche filled, every creature sculpted to perfection. The dinosaurs may dominate the land, but the oceans belong entirely to these marine titans. And yet even here balance rules. For every hunter there's a scavenger. For every meal a price. You watch as a dead ichthyosaurus drifts to the surface, its bloated body pecked by scavenging fish and tiny crustaceans. Within days it will sink again, becoming an ecosystem for worms and bacteria that thrive in the dark. Nothing is wasted, not even death. You swim closer to shore as the sun begins to set. The horizon burns orange, reflecting off the rippling water like molten glass. A school of smaller fish darts past your legs, chased by something unseen. The whole sea seems to breathe, inhale, inhale again. Standing in the surf, you feel the tug of the tide around your ankles. Foam curls over your toes, cool and constant. Far out, you catch one last glimpse of Liopleurodon's fin, slicing through the twilight waves before it disappears into night. The ocean quiets as if satisfied with its day's work. Above, the sky deepens to violet. Pterosaurs glide homeward, silhouettes vanishing into dusk. The rhythmic crash of the waves becomes hypnotic. You realize you're standing on the shoreline of two worlds, the living and the forgotten. Beneath the dark water lie millions of years of memory fossils waiting patiently to be discovered. Every ripple that touches your feet is a message from the deep, whispering, what the earth never really forgets power. No matter how vast, always returns to stillness. And as you step back onto land, dripping and dazed, the night wind brushes your skin like the last breath of an ancient sea. The monsters retreat into their depths, the stars appear above them, and for one long perfect moment both sky and ocean feel infinite and equally alive. The earth never stands still, not for oceans, not for empires. Even as you shake the salt from your hair, the ground beneath your feet is on the move. You can't feel it yet, but it's shifting slowly, inexorably, like a sleeping giant turning in its bed. The age of stability is ending. The continents are restless again. You climb a ridge overlooking a vast floodplain. Below you, rivers twist like veins of mercury, reflecting a sun that's warmer now, stronger. The air smells faintly of clay and pine resin. Ferns give way to cycads to protopalms, and the first conifers spread their needles toward the wind. But something about the landscape feels unsettled. The edges of the world are cracking. A low rumble echoes from deep underground, not thunder, not even an earthquake, but something grander. The tectonic plates beneath Pangaea are grinding, prying the supercontinent apart. The air ripples with distant heat. You look toward the horizon and see its smoke rising in long, dark ribbons, stretching for hundreds of miles. Volcanoes again, because apparently the planet never gets tired of dramatic entrances. You walk closer to the edge of a newborn rift valley. Steam hisses from fissures, and the earth itself glows faintly red. Each step crunches on ashen glass. You can smell sulfur mixed with wet stone. This is the beginning of the Atlantic Ocean right here, right now, as Africa and North America start to pull apart like two old friends drifting in different directions. Scientists still argue over the exact pace of continental drift during the Jurassic. Some models suggest inches per year, others feet. Either way, it's slow enough to seem eternal and fast enough to rewrite the map of the world in a geological blink. You kneel and place your hand against the rock. It's warm. Beneath it, magma surges upward through faults, birthing new crust. The ground trembles, slightly steady as breathing. You realize you're witnessing creation, not destruction. The Earth isn't dying, it's molting. As the continents tear apart, climates begin to shift. Where deserts once ruled rain now falls. Where swamps once spread dry savannas take root. Rivers reroute themselves like impatient artists, changing their minds mid-painting. You watch herds of Camarasaurus cross an open floodplain, where once there had been forest, their feet sinking into fresh silt. Behind them trail flocks of small two-legged dinosaurs, Ornitholestes, scavengers and opportunists snapping up insects the giants disturb. Farther north, where the air cools, feathered forms begin to stir. Small quick hunters with proto-wings leap from branch to branch. Anchiornis maybe, or something like it. They are halfway between reptile and bird gliding, short distances, feathers glinting copper in the light. You can almost hear evolution whispering, "Let's try flying again, but better this time." A quirky tidbit: scientists have found fossilized raindrop impressions preserved in sediment from this era. Some even contain traces of volcanic ash, literal sky debris caught in the act of falling. You're looking at the world's oldest weather report handwritten by the atmosphere itself. The shifting continents do more than change geography, they reshape life. As land masses drift apart, species become isolated. Evolution runs parallel experiments in different laboratories. In one corner, the ancestors of Allosaurus adapt to new prey. In another, primitive raptors sharpen their intelligence. This is biodiversity's big break, the moment the Earth stops copying and starts improvising. You rest by a river that didn't exist 1,000,000 years ago. Its banks shimmer with dragonflies, their wings patterned like stained glass. Fish flash beneath the surface, descendants of survivors from mass extinctions past. A small furry creature darts between your boots, one of the first true mammals. It pauses to sniff, then vanishes into the ferns. Tiny, unnoticed, yet holding the genetic keys to a distant future. Scientists still debate what advantage early mammals had. Warm blood night vision. The ability to dream of bigger things. Whatever it was, it worked. The giants may command attention, but the small creatures are writing the next chapter in silence. As you walk along the valley, the earth keeps changing around you. Hills rise where plains once lay flat. Rivers flood, then dry, carving canyons as they go. In the distance, the sea shimmers, a new coastline forming where none had been before. You can almost see time moving the slow choreography of continents that will one day shape everything from mountain ranges to human borders. By dusk, the sky turns molten orange, streaked with black smoke from far-off volcanoes. You find a vantage point overlooking the widening rift. Its staggering miles of open wound, glowing with magma-molten rivers, or snaking between newly born cliffs. The air hums with static, as if charged by creation itself. A quirky observation: some geologists think early volcanic activity from this period released so much carbon dioxide that global temperatures spiked by several degrees. Yet those same eruptions also fertilized the oceans with iron dust sparking algal blooms that absorbed carbon back. Even the planet's disasters balance their own books eventually. The wind picks up, carrying flecks of ash and the faint scent of rain. You close your eyes, listening. Beneath the surface roar of tectonics and wind, there's another sound, a faint rhythmic rumble, the Earth's heartbeat, slow, patient, eternal. You look around one last time. The landscape before you is raw newborn, still steaming, but life has already arrived to claim it. Ferns sprout in cracks between lava flows. Lizards bask on still cooling stone. A pterosaur circles above its wings, illuminated by the glow of molten rock. And somewhere deep below your feet, the first whispers of an ocean gather. In a few 100,000,000 years, ships will sail here carrying another kind of creature that thinks it rules the world. But for now, the Earth is its own navigator, pulling itself apart, dreaming up new boundaries, writing continents out of fire. You turn away from the heat and walk toward the twilight, where the air is cooler and the first stars appear. The land hums underfoot, alive, restless, eternal. You can't help but smile. You're standing on a planet that refuses to stop reinventing itself. The night sky hangs low and silver, the stars blurred by mist rising off a warm lagoon. You're somewhere near the middle of the Jurassic 155 million years ago, and the air feels heavy with possibility. The Earth has done its part, it's fractured fertile, full of new coastlines and climates. Now evolution is stepping back into the workshop, chiseling perfection from bone and feather. You're standing in the shadow of a tree fern forest, the ground soft with moss. Tiny creatures stir all around you, chittering, fluttering, whispering. The forest hums, but not with insects this time. It's wings, real wings, feathered and beating in a regular rhythm. A shape darts between the trees, then another. You raise your eyes just in time to see it glide through a shaft of moonlight. Archaeopteryx, the first true bird, or at least the first audition tape for one. Its wings are broad and layered with real feathers, asymmetrical and aerodynamic. But its tail, still long and bony, lined with plumes like a banner. It lands clumsily on a branch, claws clutching bark, and lets out a sound halfway between a chirp and a hiss. It looks at you with the curious arrogance of something that knows it's rewriting history. Scientists still argue whether Archaeopteryx could truly fly or just glide. Its feathers say airborne, but its chest lacks the deep keel for strong flapping. Maybe it only managed short bursts, tree-to-tree panic to safety. But you can feel watching it that flight is no longer an accident. It's a decision. Nearby, smaller feathered dinosaurs scurry across the forest floor, Anchiornis perhaps, or Microraptor's early kin. Their feathers shimmer faintly with iridescent colours, dark greens, bronzes, purples like oil on water. Scientists have actually reconstructed these pigments from fossilised melanosomes, meaning we know roughly what colour they were. Think about that, we can paint their portraits straight from dust. The forest canopy trembles. Overhead a pterosaur glides silently, its wings lit by moonlight. The early birds duck instinctively, vanishing into the leaves. For now, they're the underdogs of the sky, competing with creatures that have ruled the air for millions of years. But their secret advantage isn't size or power, it's precision. Feathers, unlike membranes, can change shape mid-flight. They can curve, twist and balance. Control beats brute force. A quirky tidbit, Archaeopteryx fossils were first found in the 1860s in limestone quarries in Solnhofen, Germany, the same stone used for lithographic printing plates. The very rock that recorded their wings was once used to print human books. Evolution, it seems, loves a poetic loop. You follow the little bird as it glides down to the forest floor. It hops twice, sniffs the air and begins picking at insects near a patch of rotting fruit. You kneel and watch. Its movements are sharp, calculated. Each tilt of the head, each flick of its tail is both reptilian and familiar. You can't help thinking of sparrows back home hopping between crumbs. The air grows warmer as dawn approaches. Mist curls off the lagoon like breath. Frogs croak unseen. The forest smells of sap-wet leaves and something faintly sweet flowers. Yes, flowers. Tiny primitive blossoms barely visible in the dim light, no bigger than your thumbnail. The first flowering plants are emerging quietly, altering everything. They don't know it yet, but they're about to rewrite ecosystems. Insects begin to visit them, dusted with pollen. You can almost see the partnership forming, plants bribing animals with nectar, animals spreading life in return. The idea of beauty, the transaction of colour and scent, it all starts here in this damp moonlit forest. A nearby splash draws your attention. In the shallows, a long-snouted Compsognathus prowls for fish. It's quick, smart and cautious. When it notices the Archaeopteryx, it freezes, tilts its head and edges closer. The little bird doesn't see it, too busy plucking at fruit. The hunter lunges snout first, but the bird lifts just enough to evade. It flaps clumsily, wings beating leaves, and escapes into the branches. You exhale. It's not perfect flight yet, but it's survival. Scientists still debate why feathers evolved in the first place. Insulation, display, camouflage. The most poetic theory says they began as warmth and ended as freedom. You smile, thinking about how often the universe works that way, solving one problem and accidentally inventing something divine. The sun finally breaks the horizon, slicing through the mist like gold ribbons. The lagoon glows pale blue. You wade in up to your knees, feeling silt swirl around your feet. Small fish dart away, flashing silver. Across the water, a Brachiosaurus herd drinks necks reflecting like columns. They raise their heads when they see you, eyes calm, ancient, unbothered. Overhead, Archaeopteryx glides again, this time more confident. It skims the water's surface, then soars just high enough to catch the sunlight on its feathers. For a moment, it looks weightless, eternal. And you realize you're watching something soon, the first act of true defiance against gravity. A quirky note, the brain case of Archaeopteryx shows expansion in the regions that handle balance and vision. Evolution literally rewired its hardware to handle flight. It's as if life kept tweaking the code until it finally ran without crashing. By midday, the air hums with activity. Pterosaurs dive for fish insects buzz from flower to flower, and small feathered creatures hop between trees. The world feels busier, more intelligent. You can almost sense awareness spreading, predators planning prey, anticipating, both sides adapting faster than ever. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of pine and salt. In the distance, the waves crash against a new coastline. The continents are drifting apart, but life is connecting in ways it never has before through flight, colour, scent and song. You find a dry patch of moss beneath a ginkgo and sit eyes half closed. Somewhere above, the Archaeopteryx lets out another raspy call, half bird, half echo of its ancestors. It sounds proud, maybe, even triumphant. You smile faintly. The air around you vibrates with wings. The earth has found a new voice and it's learning to sing. The forest at night is never silent. It breathes, clicks, sighs, and hums like an orchestra tuning itself under starlight. You sit by a riverbank deep in the Jurassic and realize that even when the great beasts sleep, the world doesn't. It just changes key. The heat of day fades into a deep, soft warmth. Mist rises from the damp ground, curling around tree trunks. Insects wake, thousands of them. Beetles, crickets, and early moths flit through the ferns. You can hear the faint buzz of wings, the crackle of tiny mandibles chewing bark. The glow of bioluminescent fungi dots fallen logs like constellations. And from somewhere unseen, a distant croak, then another, and another. The nightlife of the Jurassic has clocked in. You lift your gaze toward the tree canopy and catch a glint of movement. A small mammal scurries along a branch, its fur gleaming in the faint moonlight. It looks like a shrew, but its eyes are sharp and bright. This is Morganucodon, one of the earliest mammals to truly thrive under dinosaur rule. Barely the size of your hand, it sniffs the air, whiskers twitching. You watch as it pauses, listening to the rhythm of the night. It's cautious, clever, alive in ways no dinosaur could quite be. Scientists still argue whether early mammals were nocturnal out of necessity, hiding from the giants, or whether their warm blood simply gave them the freedom to explore the cool dark. Either way, they found a niche that no predator could quite reach. The night became their refuge, their inheritance. You follow Morganucodon with your eyes as it leaps onto a nearby log. It digs briefly, unearthing a fat beetle. Crunch. Breakfast or maybe dinner. It's impossible to tell time in a world without clocks, only instincts. Somewhere above, Archaeopteryx shifts in its sleep feathers, rustling softly. The air smells faintly of damp wood resin and something sweet, rotting fruit perhaps. Then a rustle. The Morganucodon freezes, every hair standing on end. You feel it too, a subtle vibration through the ground. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, heavy. You hold your breath. Through the mist comes a shape huge and deliberate. A Ceratosaurus prowling along the riverbank, nostrils flaring. Its horn glints in the moonlight, casting a faint reflection in the pattern. It sniffs the air once, twice, then lowers its head to drink. You can hear the sound of its tongue lapping water, the faint creak of its scales stretching with every breath. It doesn't notice you or the tiny mammal crouched on the log. When it lifts its head again, moonlight flashes on teeth. It exhales through its nose, releasing a low hiss that feels like a furnace's sigh. Then, just as silently as it came, it turns and melts into the forest. The Morganucodon waits a full minute before moving again. Then, with astonishing boldness, it returns to the same log and continues eating. You almost laugh. Survival, it seems, demands both fear and forgetfulness. Quirky tidbit paleontologists studying ancient mammal jaws have found microscopic wear patterns suggesting some species gnawed bones for calcium, tiny recyclers in a world of giants. Even back then, nothing went to waste. The night deepens. Stars shimmer faintly through gaps in the canopy. A small group of Dryosaurus juvenile herbivores no taller than your waist graze along the edge of the clearing, plucking at ferns. They move in near silence, their eyes wide and reflective, glowing faintly when the moon catches them. Occasionally one twitches its tail or lifts its head to listen, muscles tensed. Even the vegetarians here live like fugitives. You lie back in the grass and stare up at the night sky. It's full of light, familiar constellations still forming, but not quite right, the continents below still drifting into the shapes you know. You try to imagine what these creatures would think if they could see it as you do, the shimmer of cosmic order above their chaotic, toothy world. Somewhere nearby, a gentle splash. A group of amphibian survivors from older ages float in a pond, their skin glistening under the moonlight. They croak lazily, their throats pulsing like lanterns. It's the same song their ancestors sang before the first dinosaur took its first breath. Continuity disguised as background noise. Scientists still debate how sound evolved in these early ecosystems. Did some species use calls not just for mating but for communication warnings, signals, coordination? The fossil record can't capture voices, but the shape of ear bones suggests that hearing was already specialized. The world wasn't silent, it was symphonic. You close your eyes and listen. The wind shifts through the cycads with a sound like surf. Insects buzz in overlapping rhythms. Something splashes again, perhaps a fish jumping for a bug. Then faintly from deep in the forest, the low melodic call of a diplodocus rolls across the land. It's so low you feel it more than hear it, a bass hum that vibrates through your chest. Maybe it's calling to another herd miles away. Maybe it's just singing to the night. A quirky note sauropods had enormous nasal cavities that may have acted like resonating chambers, amplifying sound waves across vast distances. The Earth itself would have hummed with their presence. Imagine sleeping under a planet that literally vibrated with dinosaur conversation. You drift half asleep to that sound, the hum of the giants blending with the chirp of insects and the soft gurgle of the stream. The night feels infinite protective, a dark lullaby sung by an ancient planet. You open your eyes once more before sleep takes you. Fireflies drift across the air, tracing lazy arcs of green light. The small mammal you watched earlier curls up beneath a fern, its tiny chest rising and falling, in rhythm with the world around it. And for a heartbeat, everything feels balanced. The giants dream above, the tiny dream below. The earth caught between them turns quietly under the stars. In this moment, this hush between roars and extinctions, you realize, even in the age of monsters, peace existed. You just had to wait until the lights went out to hear it. Morning unfurls like silk. Dew beads on every fern and sunlight pours through the canopy in golden columns so thick you could almost lean on them. You're breathing in air that smells faintly sweet, almost floral. And that's not your imagination. The world has changed again. You're standing in the early Cretaceous about 25 million years ago, and the planet has just discovered perfume, flowers, real flowers. They're small, delicate things, nothing like roses or lilies yet. But here among the cycads and ferns, tiny blossoms glimmer, pale yellow, white and purple. Their petals open shyly to the morning sun, each one a new strategy disguised as beauty. The air hums with insects drawn to their scent, wasps, beetles, and the first primitive bees dusty with pollen. You crouch to watch one work its body moving in rhythmic precision, its wings glinting like glass. Every landing, every buzz, every brush of petal to leg is rewriting the rules of life. Scientists still debate where flowers came from. Some think they evolved from ancient seed ferns. Others argue for aquatic ancestors that learned to bloom on land. But one thing is certain. Once they appeared, the world couldn't go back. Plants no longer depended on wind alone. They had hired their first couriers animals and paid them in nectar. The forest feels different now, softer, more colourful. Dinosaurs still dominate, of course, but even they seem dwarfed by the sensory explosion happening beneath their feet. You can smell sweetness where once there was only resin. You can see patches of pink and gold breaking through the green monotony. You can hear the faint buzz of pollinators weaving through the air. It's as if the planet suddenly remembered how to decorate. A small herd of iguanodon passes between the trees. They're bipedal herbivores, each the size of a truck with thumb spikes sharp enough to make you reconsider vegetarianism. Their snouts dip toward flowering shrubs, pulling at blossoms delicately for such enormous creatures. Pollen dusts their scaly lips, turning them into accidental gardeners. You can see how evolution rewards partnerships. Flowers feed herbivores spread, and somewhere in the middle the world keeps turning. One iguanodon raises its head, chewing lazily. Its eyes catch the light with something you could almost mistake for thought. These animals aren't mindless. Herd behavior demands awareness, communication, patience. The young linger near their parents' legs. The adults rumble softly, reassuring them. Scientists still argue whether these locals were speech or instinct, but the effect is unmistakable. The air itself vibrates with care. A quirky tidbit, fossilized stomach contents of iguanodon show chewed-up plant matter mixed with grit and pebbles. They swallowed stones, intentionally using them to grind their food internally, prehistoric blenders running on geology. You follow the herd as it moves toward a clearing, where a stream sparkles through the underbrush. The water reflects clusters of newly blooming magnolia-like flowers, their waxy petals trembling in the breeze. The scent is intoxicating as a mix of honey and spice, familiar yet ancient. You kneel to touch one, and for a moment you feel the fragility of it. All this colour, all this sweetness exists purely to attract. Life at its core is just a series of flirtations. Overhead, a dragonfly passes its wings iridescent. Then another shadow larger, slower. A pterosaur glides across the clearing, its wings stretched wide, its long beak snapping at insects mid-air. The buzz of wings, the hum of bees, the whisper of leaves, it's all sound layered like music. The Cretaceous isn't just alive, it's busy. You hear rustling nearby and turn to see a creature that looks like a cross between a parrot and a chicken Psittacosaurus. It's covered in small bristle-like feathers, and its beak shines yellow as it picks at fallen fruit. When threatened, it flicks its tail, displaying a row of long, flexible spines. Scientists think these might have been used for display or intimidation, proof that vanity predates humanity by a wide margin. The Psittacosaurus pauses, stares at you, and then chirps, an odd hollow sound like a flute played underwater. You're not sure whether it's greeting you or telling you to back off. Either way, it hops away, disappearing among the cicads. You sit on a mossy log and take it all in. The sunlight dapples your arms. A breeze stirs the flowers. The air is thick with scent and movement. You realize you're witnessing the beginning of the modern world, the world of color, fragrance, and subtle cooperation. A quirky note, fossilized amber from this era, has trapped pollen grains and even the occasional insect mid-flight preserved in honey-colored eternity. Scientists have found entire Cretaceous ecosystems encased in droplets no larger than your thumb. It's as if time itself wanted a keepsake. The herd of iguanodon wades into the streamtails, swaying lazily. One lowers its head to drink and ripples spread outward, distorting the reflection of the sky. The clouds are changing, now higher, more defined. You can almost sense the atmosphere stabilizing the air, thinner, cleaner. The earth is maturing, and in that calm you hear something delicate, a hum, steady and persistent. Bees, real bees, working the new blossoms. You smile. Somewhere in that buzz lies the promise of future harvests, fruits, and all the sweetness and muecas the world will ever know. The sky turns gold as the sun dips. The flowers close, folding their petals like tired eyelids. The iguanodon herd settles down, resting in the warm grass. Fireflies blink to life among the stems. The air cools, carrying the faint perfume of crushed flowers and damp earth. You lie back, the sky darkening above you, stars beginning to puncture the blue. Around you, the new garden of the world breathes softly. Every scent, every sound, every flicker of light feels like the planet whispering a secret life doesn't just survive, it seduces. You close your eyes and the thought lingers like the smell of jasmine in the dark. The Earth is in one of her more experimental moods again. The air is warmer, the continents wider apart, the ecosystems crowded with new blueprints. You wake to the sound of movement, heavy, rhythmic delibera, and realize you're surrounded by creatures that look like fortresses with legs. The age of armor has arrived. Before you, sunlight spills across a landscape of rolling hills and open woodland. Ferns wave in the breeze, and patches of flowering plants dot the meadows. But it's the shapes that catch your breath, lumbering silhouettes of ankylosaurs, the living tanks of the Cretaceous. Each one is a walking contradiction, bulky yet graceful, gentle, but built for war. The nearest one, Ankylosaurus magniventris, is roughly the size of a bus. Its back is a mosaic of bone plates, thick as your forearm, fused into a shield that glitters faintly under the sun. Along its tail, the armor thickens until it ends in a club of solid bone. It swings that tail idly like a bored knight testing his mace. When the air moves, you can hear the faint creak of muscle and hide like leather tightening around steel. Scientists still argue how strong that tail strike really was. Some say it could shatter a T-Rex's shin. Others claim it was more of a warning thud than a death blow. Either way, you don't want to be on the receiving end of an animal that considers tree trunks optional obstacles. Nearby, smaller armored species graze Nodosaurus sauropelta euoplocephalus. Their armor patterns vary like fingerprints, some flat, some spiked, some studded with nodules. Each design tells the same story: survival through stubbornness. You watch as one Nodosaurus lowers its head to nibble a patch of ferns. Its skin folds and flexes around the plates, more machine than animal. A quirky tidbit, fossilized skin impressions from ankylosaurs, show tiny hexagonal scales between the larger plates. Even their soft spots were armored. It's as if evolution looked at vulnerability and said, "Not on my watch." Across the plain, a different form of defense catches your eye. A herd of triceratops moves slowly through a grove of cycads. Their horns gleam in the light, each one longer than your arm, and their frills ripple with faint patterns of color. A juvenile runs to catch up, tripping over a root, and one of the adults nudges it gently with its beak. The tenderness is unmistakable. The armor, it seems, doesn't dull the heart. You step closer, careful not to startle them. The herd pauses, heads turning in unison. For a moment all you see are eyes large, intelligent, ancient. One male snorts, releasing a puff of steam into the cool morning air. His frill edged in red catches the sun like stained glass. Scientists still debate whether those colours were used for species recognition, mating, or intimidation. Maybe all three. Nature loves multitasking. You can hear the low rumble of their voices, deep resonant bellows that make the ground tremble faintly. Communication coordination may be comfort. These animals move as one, a family shaped by muscle, bone, and loyalty. You realise that this isn't just survival, it's social structure. The first faint echoes of something that will someday sound like community. Predators lurk, of course, they always do. A shadow moves at the edge of the forest, something tall, thin and calculating. Deinonychus, the sickle-clawed hunter cousin to the raptors that will later terrify Hollywood. It watches the herd, carefully, golden eyes flicking between targets. But it doesn't strike. Not today. Against armor and unity, even cunning knows its limits. The air warms as the day unfolds. You sit near a shallow pond reflecting the sky, dragonflies skimming the surface. On the opposite bank, a group of hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, graze in peace. One raises its head and lets out a soft trumpeting sound that echoes through the trees. Its skull contains hollow chambers that act like brass instruments, shaping sound into communication. Scientists have even modelled their calls deep, melodic, almost mournful. Imagine standing in a world where music began with herbivores. A quirky note some paleontologists think hadrosaur crests might have helped them identify each other's voices across great distances. A prehistoric version of caller ID, except you couldn't block numbers. As afternoon fades, you wander through a grove of flowering shrubs. Bees buzz lazily between blossoms, their hum merging with the background drone of cicadas. A small Pachycephalosaurus appears, its dome-shaped skull gleaming like polished stone. It eyes you warily, then lowers its head and butts a nearby tree. The impact echoes like a drumbeat. The trunk shakes, leaves flutter down. You can almost hear the creature mutter, "Yeah, that'll show him." Scientists still debate whether these dome-headed dinosaurs used their skulls for combat display or species recognition. The bone dome was up to 10 inches thick, evolution's equivalent of an argument you can't win. The day softens into gold. Long shadows stretch across the field as the Triceratops herd beds down near a stand of trees. The ankylosaurs gather in clusters, their tails resting still there, armor catching the last light like bronze sculpture. The air smells of warm earth and pollen. You sit beside a fallen log, tracing patterns in the dirt with your fingers. You realize that this world isn't ruled by teeth anymore. It's ruled by armor, strategy, and resilience. Strength has evolved into patience. Fear has turned into coexistence. Above you, the evening sky blushes crimson, then fades to indigo. Fireflies drift between the armored shapes, their glow reflecting off plates and horns. Somewhere far off, a predator cries, and the herds tighten, pressing shoulder to shoulder. The response is instinctive but unified, centuries of survival distilled into one motion. A gentle wind stirs the grass, carrying the scent of flowers and resin. You take a deep breath and smile. For the first time in this long journey through prehistory, the world feels calm. Not safe exactly, but balanced. You close your eyes, listening to the deep breaths of sleeping giants. Their bodies shift plates, clinking softly like ancient wind chimes. The earth hums beneath them, steady and sure. In this tranquil twilight surrounded by creatures built to endure, you understand something quietly profound. Evolution's greatest masterpiece isn't aggression, it's persistence. The air is different here, drier, sharper. It carries the metallic tang of dust and sun-baked stone. You open your eyes to a landscape vast and open like a prehistoric savanna stretching forever. Wind combs the tall ferns and sparse trees into waves. Somewhere beyond the horizon, thunder rolls not from clouds but from footsteps. The kings are coming. A shadow moves across the plain, then another. And then there he is, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The name doesn't do it justice. He's not just an animal, he's gravity-given muscle. You can feel him before you can see him, the ground trembling in rhythm with his strides, each one like a slow heartbeat. He emerges from the haze of dust and sunlight, 20 feet tall, 40 feet long, every line of his body built for dominance. His skin is mottled with scars, scales interspersed with patches that shimmer faintly in the light feather remnants perhaps, or the ghost of an evolutionary experiment that never fully disappeared. His breath fogs the air when he exhales, a deep rumble that makes your ribs vibrate. and his eyes golden, forward-facing, unblinking. Those are not the eyes of a mindless monster. They calculate, measure, remember. You stand still, barely daring to breathe. Around you the Cretaceous hums with tension. Herds of Triceratops shift nervously in the distance, tails flicking, frills flaring red. A flock of small feathered raptors scuttles into the underbrush. Even the air seems to step back. This is the apex of the apex, the final boss of a 50 million years of evolution. Scientists still argue whether T-Rex was a pure hunter or also a scavenger. Its nose could detect a carcass from miles away, yet its jaw strength suggests it preferred making its own meals. With teeth up to 12 inches long, serrated like steak knives, it didn't bite, it crushed. The bone shards found in its fossilized dung confirm that nothing went uneaten. You move slowly behind a fallen tree, heart hammering. The T. Rex pauses, nostrils flaring. For a moment you swear it smells you. Then from across the plain, a sound, a bellow, deep and defiant. Another T-Rex. The air shivers between them. You're about to witness something extraordinary. The first roars meet like colliding thunderheads. The sound is physical. It hits your chest, rattles your bones. Dust rises as the two giants circle each other, tails sweeping trenches in the dirt. One is younger, sleeker, the other older with a broken tooth and one milky eye. Neither gives ground. They lunge. The impact shakes the earth. Teeth flash. Flesh tears. The younger one feints, dodges, then lunges again, aiming for the neck. The older counters with the swing of its massive skull slamming jaws into ribs. You can hear the crack, sharp as lightning splitting stone. The smell of blood mingles with dust and heat. It's over quickly, surprisingly so. The younger retreats limping, while the victor stands still, chest heaving, steam rising from its nostrils. It lets out one more low rumbling roar, not of rage, but of possession. Then it turns slow and deliberate and walks toward the carcass of a hadrosaur half buried in mud. Business as usual. You exhale, realizing your fists are clenched. You've just seen evolution's purest equation strength multiplied by precision, perfected through failure. A quirky tidbit scientists once found healed bite marks on T-Rex skulls, proof they sometimes fought their own kind without dying. Even kings, it seems, have sparring partners. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of decay mixed with pollen. You turn and see smaller predators emerging from the shadows. Dromaeosaurs, the raptor's eyes bright with opportunism. They move like whispers, low, fast synchronized. Where T-Rex is the hammer, they are scalpels. They pick at straps, darting in and out between the giant's distracted moments. One stops near you, about human size, covered in a fine coat of feathers that shimmer blue and black like an oil slick. It tilts its head, studying you. Then it chirps a high, inquisitive sound, almost cute, before vanishing back into the tall grass. Scientists still debate just how intelligent these dromaeosaurs were. Their brain-to-body ratio rivals modern birds. They may have hunted in coordinated packs, planned ambushes, even learned by watching. If T-Rex represents brute strength, these are the tacticians, the generals of prehistory. You climb a rocky ledge overlooking the plain. The herds are still restless, shifting uneasily in the long shadows. A group of Edmontosaurus duck-billed herbivores move in tight formation, their tails swaying in rhythm. One raises its head and emits a low call, mournful and melodic. It echoes across the valley, blending with the wind. You wonder if it's fear or just communication, if sound in this world is as much for reassurance as for warning. A quirky note hadrosaurs had complex nasal passages that could amplify sound like a French horn. They may have been capable of a wide range of tones from low rumbles to trumpeting cries. Communication wasn't a human invention, it was already an art form millions of years before speech. As the sun sinks, the landscape turns bronze. The T-Rex finishes its meal and lifts its head, blood glistening along its jaws. It gazes toward the horizon where thunderclouds gather. Lightning flashes illuminating its silhouette, a figure so perfectly balanced between terror and majesty that it seems sculpted, not born. You sit there watching and realize something strange. You're not afraid anymore. You're in awe. This creature isn't evil or monstrous or wrong. It's just complete. The final draft of a long, relentless experiment in survival. The first drops of rain fall warm and heavy. The T-Rex blinks, turns away and disappears into the gathering stormtail, swinging like a pendulum. The plain falls silent again except for the steady hiss of rain. You tilt your head back and let it wash over you, feeling the warmth fade from the air. The kings of the Cretaceous have come and gone before your eyes, and though the earth will keep changing, nothing it makes will ever embody power quite like this again. The storm grows louder. Thunder rolls across the valley, chasing the echo of the last roar. You close your eyes and think of balance muscle and mind predator and prey chaos and grace, and how evolution somehow stitched them together into something that for one golden age ruled absolutely. The world exhales and the air smells of fire. You open your eyes to an earth simmering under its own heat, steam rising from rivers, distant skies bruised with smoke. The Middle Cretaceous is no gentle paradise. It's beautiful, yes, but in the way a furnace is beautiful when it glows. You stand on a hill of black volcanic soil, the ground warm beneath your boots. The horizon ripples with mirages, but those aren't illusions, they're vents, geysers and distant volcanoes spitting ash into a red-streaked sky. The Earth's crust has grown restless again. Plates grind, mountains climb, and molten rivers crawl toward the sea. Far to the north, new oceans open. Far to the south, deserts bloom. The continents are drifting faster now, and with every mile, they reshape climate and life. The once stable Jurassic world has fragmented into heat and chaos. Scientists still argue how long this global fever lasted, but they agree on one thing: the Cretaceous was warm, maybe the warmest period in the past 500 million years. There are no polar ice caps. Tropical forests stretch almost to the poles. Sea levels are so high that much of today's land lies drowned beneath shallow, steaming seas. You kneel and touch the soil, it's rich, oily, filled with minerals. Life loves this heat, at least for now. Ferns grow shoulder high, flowering plants spread fast, and insects thrive like never before. Dragonflies big as dinner plates buzz overhead. Beetles swarm tree bark in metallic cascades. The air hums with wings and scent and sunlight, and yet something feels on edge. The warmth feeds abundance, but it also feeds instability. Storms roll across the land like migrating beasts. You watch lightning fork across the horizon, followed seconds later by the deep boom of thunder. Rain falls, but it's hot, each drop hissing as it hits the ground. You turn toward the plains below. Herds of hadrosaurs graze in wide arcs, their hides glistening under the heavy rain. Their calls rise and fall, a chorus that sounds both mournful and reassuring. Nearby, a pack of feathered Deinonychus watches from the tree line, eyes narrowed against the downpour. They won't attack now. Predators don't waste energy in storms, and yet one of them lifts its head to the wind feathers slicked against its neck. For a heartbeat, it looks almost human in its frustration caught between hunger and patience. You realize that intelligence has been growing quietly in this heat. Brain cavities in these creatures are larger, their behavior more coordinated. Evolution is trading bulk for brains, brute force for strategy. A quirky tidbit: fossilized nesting sites from this period show evidence of communal care. Raptors may have guarded eggs together, taking shifts much like penguins do today. Cooperation, once an exception, is becoming the new survival tactic. The storm breaks and sunlight floods the world again. Steam rises in pillars from the ground, the air thick with petrichor and resin. You walk through the steaming forest leaves dripping war onto your shoulders. Everything glows a surreal green gold, as if the planet itself is photosynthesizing. The trees here are tall, almost alien. Magnolias, cycads, and conifers tower above you, their roots twisted through volcanic rock. Between them, vines hang heavy with bright flowers. The scent is dizzying, sweet, sharp, intoxicating. Bees hum drunkenly from bloom to bloom. And then something moves among the trees, a ripple of red scales. A head emerges, framed by a ridge of bone like a crown. Carnotaurus, the bull-headed predator of South America, fast as a cheetah, lean as a blade. Its arms are comically small, so tiny you almost laugh, but its legs are made of pure muscle, its eyes sharp with focus. It spots you. You freeze. Then, in one sudden motion, it turns and bolts not toward you, but across the clearing after a small herd of ornithopods. The chase is over before it begins. The predator slams into its prey with terrifying precision, jaws closing around a neck in a single motion. The forest goes still except for the distant hiss of cooling rain. Scientists still debate how Carnotaurus hunted. Its jaw muscles suggest a bite built for speed rather than crushing power, more assassin than brawler. Its short arms, likely useless for grabbing, may have helped it keep balance during rapid turns. Evolution, as always, finds use even for absurdity. You walk past the aftermath, the forest returns to its rhythm, almost instantly, flies buzzing, leaves dripping, lizards darting between roots. Death here is just maintenance. By late afternoon, the air grows heavier again, the sunlight dimming behind a veil of ash. A volcano on the horizon belches a column of smoke miles high. The light turns copper and the shadows lengthen unnaturally. The air tastes faintly of metal. You watch flocks of pterosaurs veer off course, uneasy. The sky feels different wrong. A quirky note, the Cretaceous atmosphere held more carbon dioxide than ours by a factor of 5. That meant denser air, faster plant growth, and storms unlike anything we could imagine. Some researchers think this climate bred hypercanes mega hurricanes that could wrap halfway around the planet. The wind shifts suddenly, hot and dry. Leaves rustle in alarm. The forest begins to sway. You crouch low, feeling the pressure drop. The first gust hits hard enough to knock you backward. Branches snap, lightning flashes, and rain returns in sheets so thick you can't see 5 feet ahead. You take shelter beneath a fallen log, watching the storm rage. Water floods through the underbrush. Trees topple. You hear the distant cries of animals swept away. It feels apocalyptic, but this too is just another day in the warm age. Hours later, when the storm passes, the world glistens anew. The smell of ozone and sap fills the air. Ash from the volcano mixes with rainwater, coating everything in grey. You stand drenched but alive. The forest already hums again, frogs calling insects, buzzing, life, rebuilding faster than the storm could destroy it. That's the secret, isn't it? Heat, flood, flame, none of it ends the story. It just rewrites it. You climb a ridge, the sky clearing above. The sun sets blood red through the haze, painting the clouds like molten copper. Below, the world breathes steam and light. Herds move across the plain again. The volcano cools. The rivers shine. You close your eyes, the warmth of the air wrapping around you. The planet feels both exhausted and alive, like an artist who refuses to stop painting, even if it means setting the canvas on fire just to start again. You wake to cold, real cold. Your breath ghosts in the air, condensing into tiny crystals that drift and vanish. The ground beneath you crunches with frost, not ash. Snowflakes gather on the ferns, delicate as lacework. The Cretaceous has turned white. You are standing at the edge of the world, what will one day be Alaska or Australia, depending on which direction the continents decide to drift. The sun barely lifts above the horizon, a dull amber disk filtering through months of twilight. For half the year, this land doesn't see the sun at all. For the other half, it barely blinks. Yet here, against all logic, dinosaurs thrive. You pull your cloak tighter, though of course it doesn't help. You're surrounded by a forest that shouldn't exist. Conifers, ginkgos, and dawn redwoods wrapped in snow. Between their trunks move shapes dark warm alive. A herd of Laer Elinosaura emerges, each no larger than a collie, their bodies covered in a fine coat of feathers that shimmer brown and gold. They move in clusters, brushing against one another, leaving winding tracks in the frost. Their eyes gleam unnervingly large, reflecting every bit of stray light. Scientists still debate whether these polar dinosaurs hibernated or stayed active through the long dark. Their enlarged optic lobes suggest they could see in near-night conditions night vision, before mammals had even earned the patent. The herd pauses near a frozen stream. One of them lowers its head, scraping at the ice with its beak to reach the water below. The others follow, drinking in turns, tails swishing to keep balance. A youngster slips, squeals, and tumbles sideways. Immediately, 3 adults rush to nudge it back to its feet. Cooperation deep, instinctive, perhaps even affectionate. Survival this far north requires teamwork. A quirky tidbit, Elinosaur's tail was unusually long, 3 times its body length, and packed with extra vertebrae for flexibility. Some paleontologists think it used the tail for communication waving signals in the half-light, like a semaphore of survival. You kneel and touch the snow. It's soft, dry, faintly blue under the dim sun, and the air smells of pine resin and distant salt. Somewhere beyond the trees lies the coast, where the sea steams faintly under the weak light. The contrast is surreal snow meeting surf, palm-like saccades crusted with frost. This world shouldn't work, and yet it does. A flock of Cryolophosaurus crested predators adapted to the cold moves silently through the trees. Their scales glisten with frost and faint tufts of down cling to their necks. They hunt slowly, methodically, their breath curling like smoke. When one exhales near a frozen branch, the moisture freezes instantly, leaving a tiny rim of ice behind. Even death here is delicate. You watch as they close in on a lone Elinosaurus separated from the herd. It doesn't flee. Instead, it stands tall, puffing its feathers to appear larger, tail swaying in defiance. For a heartbeat, predator and prey lock eyes, 2 survivors of the same merciless world. Then with sudden grace, the little herbivore dives into a burrow, vanishing beneath the snow. The hunters snarl, circling frustrated. One scratches at the surface but soon gives up. The snow falls again, covering the scene like forgiveness. Scientists still argue how warm-blooded dinosaurs really were. These Arctic dwellers force the question. To survive such conditions, they must have generated internal heat, perhaps even huddled together like penguins. Cold-blooded life couldn't have built fires like this, fires made of muscle motion and persistence. You move through the forest as twilight deepens. The world is blue and quiet, the snow glowing faintly from what little sunlight filters through the haze. Every sound is crisp, the crunch of your steps, the soft murmur of wind through frozen leaves, the distant groan of shifting ice. You stop at a clearing where strange light flickers in the sky green and violet ribbons waving across the darkness. The first auroras born from solar winds playing with a magnetic field still finding its balance. You can't help but smile. Even the sky adapts to extremes here. A small shape scurries past your boot, a primitive mammal, fur thick and glossy, nose twitching. It pauses, then disappears under the snow. Everywhere you look, life is burrowing, hiding, waiting out the dark. Even here at the edge of the habitable world, evolution has found an audience. The wind picks up, carrying with it the distant call of a Cryolophosaurus, a sound like wind through brass pipes, is answered by another fainter one across the valley. Their voices echo for miles, vibrating through the frozen trees. The forest listens, but does not flinch. It has heard this music for millions of years. You climb a ridge where the snow is thinner and look down over the valley. The herds below glow faintly in the half-light, their movements slow and purposeful. Steam rises from their bodies like breath from a sleeping animal. Above them, the aurora swirls green ribbons twisting into violet. The light reflects on the snow, painting the world in colours too soft to describe. A quirky note chemical analysis of fossilized soil from polar regions suggests that even during the dark season, temperatures rarely drop below freezing. These weren't frozen wastelands, but cool, dim greenhouses wrapped in twilight. The polar dinosaurs didn't just survive the dark, they thrived in it. As the hours pass, the wind calms. The Lielenosaura herd settles near the base of a cliff, circling together. One stands guard while the others curl close. You sit nearby, drawing your knees to your chest, your own breath joining theirs in misty spirals. For a while, you all share the same silence. Somewhere deep within the earth, the mantle moves, continents drift, volcanoes sleep. But up here, the world feels still. The snow absorbs every sound. The sky glows softly, endlessly. You close your eyes and think of warmth, not of fire, but of persistence, of creatures that dared to live where the sun forgot to rise. And as the auroras dance overhead, you realize that life's truest measure isn't abundance or dominance. It's endurance, the quiet insistence that even in endless nights something will find a way to keep breathing. The world is humming, not with engines or cities, but with throats, lungs, and echoes, an ancient choir rehearsing for eternity. You wake in a low valley drenched in fog, the air thick with sound. Not the thunder of footsteps or the hiss of wind through ferns, something more intricate, deliberate. The Cretaceous has learned to speak. A deep resonant bellow rolls across the plain, so low it rattles your chest, then another higher answering it from miles away. You turn toward the sound and see shapes moving through the mist, herds of Parasaurolophus, their long arched crests cutting silhouettes against the dawn. They move like ships through shallow fog necks, swaying tails sweeping rhythmic arcs. You crouch watching. The nearest one raises its head and exhales sharply through its crest. The call that follows is haunting, a wavering horn-like tone that ripples through the air, deep and mournful, fading only to rise again in echo. Another answers, then another, until the valley fills with layered notes, each slightly different in pitch. Communication music even. Scientists still argue about the exact sound Parasaurolophus made. Some models suggest low bass note onwards you could feel more than hear. Others propose a melodic honk like an ancient brass instrument. Either way, these creatures are proof that sound itself has become survival. Their crests aren't decoration, they're architecture for resonance. The herd grazes as they call plucking ferns and magnolia leaves with broad, toothless mouths. Their eyes glimmer with calm intelligence. A juvenile nudges its parent's side, bleating softly, and the adult responds with a short, soothing tone. You realize you're watching language before words, communication carried by frequency, emotion, rhythm. A quirky tidbit: scientists have recreated Parasaurolophus vocalizations by running air through 3D printed models of their fossil crests. The sound is eerie, almost human, low, trembling, and impossible to forget. If you listen long enough, it feels like the earth itself is trying to talk to you. The fog begins to lift, revealing more of the valley. Across the water, another herd answers the calls, and for a brief, surreal moment, the two groups' sounds overlap, perfectly forming harmony. You feel it through the soles of your feet. The dinosaurs are literally shaping the soundscape of their world. You move quietly through the reeds, the ground soft beneath your feet. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of wet vegetation and pollen. Insects drift lazily between flowers. Somewhere nearby, a predator snarls a short barking sound, quickly answered by the chorus of honks. The herd closes, ranks tails outward, heads high. The predator hesitates. Even danger must now respect the power of unity. Out of the mist, a Troodon appears, slender, bird-like, curious rather than threatening. It tilts its head, golden eyes narrowing as it studies you. Its feathers shimmer faintly with blue and green sheen. This is no mindless hunter. This is an intellect in progress. Scientists believe Troodon had one of the highest brain-to-body ratios of any dinosaur. Some even call it the thinking lizard. It blinks once, chirps softly, and vanishes into the foliage like a question unanswered. You sit on a rock near the riverbank and listen. The Parasaurolophus calls continue, but now they sound different, shorter, punctuated. Perhaps they're alerting others of the Troodon's presence. Or maybe it's just conversation, the prehistoric equivalent of gossip. Either way, the valley feels alive, not just with motion, but with meaning. Scientists still debate how advanced dinosaur communication became. Did they use specific calls for warnings, for food, for affection? Or was it all instinct, layered in sound but empty of thought? You can't know for sure, but watching them interact the way they mirror, respond, pause, you suspect the line between instinct and awareness has blurred. A flock of small feathered creatures flutters overhead, perching on branches. They chirp in response to the larger animals below, as if joining the conversation. The calls weave together, low honks, high trills, rhythmic beats. The forest vibrates with it. You close your eyes, letting the sound wash through you. It's hypnotic, comforting, like the planet humming to itself in contentment. Then the rhythm shifts. The honks become sharp staccato bursts. The herd stiffens. From the tree line, a ripple of movement. A pack of dromaeosaurs bursts into the open, feathers bristling. They move fast, weaving between trunks like arrows of muscle and color. The herd reacts instantly. The calls crescendo into one unified roar that seems to shake the air itself. The predators falter. The noise is overwhelming, too deep, too coordinated. One dromaeosaur lunges anyway and catches a tail swipe that sends it tumbling. The rest retreat into the trees, melting back into silence. The honks soften again, returning to calm. The valley exhales. A quirky note fossils show that some hadrosaurs developed thicker skulls and specialized sinuses to handle the pressure of their own calls. Imagine evolving sturdier bones just so you can sing louder. The sun finally breaks through the mist, turning the valley gold. Steam rises from the river. The Parasaurolophus resume grazing their tails, swaying in slow rhythm. Off to the side, a small group of juveniles plays, splashing in the shallows, their laughter, if you can call it that, echoing like distant horns. You lie back on the grass, feeling the vibrations through the ground. The calls ripple up your spine, ancient and soothing. The Earth is talking again, but not to warn or threaten, to celebrate. Above you, dragonflies hover. Birds, real feathered birds, now dart between the trees, chirping bright notes that weave into the deeper dinosaur chorus. The boundaries between old and new blur. You realize that when modern birds sing, they're not inventing, they're remembering. The air cools as dusk approaches. The last rays of sunlight catch the fog, returning golden. At first, then to a grey. The herd gathers in a wide circle, resting together. One lets out a low, fading note, a lullaby for the end of the day. You close your eyes. The sound fades but doesn't vanish. It lingers inside your chest like a heartbeat. For millions of years, this valley will forget the names of its singers, but not their music. When the night finally takes over, you understand something simple and vast: survival alone is never enough. Sooner or later, even evolution learns to crave a song. The morning comes wrapped in mist and silence, the kind that feels like the world is holding its breath before a revelation. The earth has been whispering through every age, through stonewater, feather and roar, but now you sense something heavier stirring. The air is different. The balance feels off. You stand at the edge of a wide coastal plain. Behind you, stretches the lush Cretaceous forest humming with the usual chorus of insects and calls. Before you lies the sea, an endless shimmer of greenish blue under the pale sun. The waves lap it against a beach of fine volcanic sand, and the air smells of salt, algae, and something else, sulfur. You kneel, scoop a handful of sand, and let it fall through your fingers. It's warm, unnaturally warm. The earth beneath your feet is restless again. The horizon trembles with a faint orange glow. Somewhere far away a volcano exhales. This is not an isolated tantrum. The planet has begun to cough fire from multiple throats at once. Deep fissures open across continents, vomiting lava for centuries without pause. The Deccan traps of what will someday be India are one such wound rivers of molten rock that will flow long enough to alter the chemistry of the sky itself. Scientists still argue whether these eruptions or something else entirely will write the next ending. But one thing is certain: the air is thickening. Every breath tastes faintly metallic. You can feel the humidity climb, the temperature rise, the sun's warmth pressing harder each day. You turn inland where life still refuses to slow down. A herd of titanosaurs moves through the trees, immense gentle mountains of flesh and bone. Each step sinks deep into the mud, leaving craters big enough to trap small lakes. Their necks sway like cranes reaching for treetops heavy with leaves and fruit. When they exhale, steam curls from their nostrils in the heavy air. A curious Majungasaurus, a stocky one-eyed predator, follows at a cautious distance. It doesn't bother attacking. The heat alone makes every movement costly. You can almost feel its internal engine running too hot. A quirky tidbit chemical traces from fossilized soil show that oxygen levels during this period were dropping. Less air for giants to breathe, more carbon clogging the atmosphere. Even the lungs of dinosaurs, once unmatched, began to strain. The planet was growing feverish. You walk toward a nearby lagoon, its surface filmed with green algae. Bubbles rise, lazily breaking with faint pops. The smell of rotten sulfur stings your eyes. The water, once teeming with life, now feels sluggish. You notice fish floating near the surface, their bellies pale and bloated. It's not decay, it's suffocation. The ocean itself is losing breath. Scientists still debate whether volcanic CO2 caused ocean acidification or if something even larger was brewing beyond the sky. But here in this small pool of dying water, you can already see the pattern imbalance rippling outward. Life has pushed the limits too far. A gust of wind carries ash fine as flour settling across your skin. It feels dry, gritty, ancient. The sun above is dimmed by haze. You glance upward, no clouds yet, the light flickers distorted. Dust from volcanoes circles the planet, filtering the sunlight into a strange copper tone. It's beautiful in a melancholy way, the colour of a candle burning low. From the forest the normal sounds have thinned. The calls of Parasaurolophus are fewer, softer. The buzzing of insects is subdued. Even the breeze seems to hesitate. You realise you've grown used to noise, the endless heartbeat of life, and now its quiet feels like grief. You wander until you reach a cliff overlooking the ocean. The sea stretches endless and still a sheet of dull green glass. You think you see movement beneath it, a shadow perhaps, but it vanishes as quickly as it came. The air smells faintly burnt. You realise the volcanic haze is global ash particles floating halfway around the world. A quirky note, tiny glass-like beads called tektites have been found in rock layers from this period scattered across continents. They're fragments of molten earth, hurled high and cooled mid-air. Each one is a timestamp, a flash of catastrophe frozen forever. As dusk falls, the horizon glows faintly red, not from the setting sun, but from the planet itself. The earth has become a lantern, bleeding heat through open wounds. The titanosaurs settle down for the night, rumbling softly. The air is thick enough to taste. You sit beside them, leaning against the rough, warm skin of one giant's flank. Its breathing is steady but slower than before. You watch the stars blink faintly through the haze. They look distant, muted, smothered by dust. Somewhere out there, something cold and silent is moving, a rock maybe, or an omen. You can't see it yet, but you can feel the story tightening. Scientists still argue what the dinosaurs would have known, if anything. Did they notice the change in sky, the thinning air? Did the birds fall silent before the end, or sing louder to defy it? The night deepens. The volcano's glow reflects off the clouds, turning the whole sky red. Ash drifts down like dark snow, settling on leaves, feathers, and scales. You brush some from your arm, but it returns endless, gentle, persistent. The earth is quiet again, too quiet. Even the wind seems to have stopped. You look at the horizon one last time before you rest. The stars have dimmed completely, now the sky smudged and opaque. It's not the silence that scares you, it's the waiting. The pause before the chord resolves before the curtain falls. The giants still breathe, the forests still grow, the oceans still shimmer. But everything feels poised, held, listening for something that hasn't happened yet. You lie down in the warm dust, feeling the slow heartbeat of the earth beneath your palm. It's still there, steady, ancient, indifferent. You close your eyes. For 150 million years, dinosaurs have ruled the world. But even empires carved in bone and thunder, the sky is unnaturally clear, too clear. The haze has settled, the air feels calm, almost gentle, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, the sunlight is sharp and golden. You step out onto the edge of a coastal plateau and look across the late Cretaceous world. It's beautiful, so beautiful it's suspicious. You've seen this before in smaller ways, the stillness before storms, the quiet before eruptions, the faint pause in the forest when predators are near. But this calm is bigger, deeper. It stretches across continents. The volcanoes have grown quiet, the winds have stopped shifting, the seas have gone mirror flat. The planet is catching its breath. And then out of nowhere a streak of light splits the morning. At first it's faint, a thin scar across the sky, bright but silent. Then it grows impossibly fast. The air itself begins to moan a low whistle that climbs toward a scream. You look up, and in that instant you understand the end is not coming slowly this time. The object tears through the atmosphere, glowing white-blue trailing, a tail that blooms like sunrise. The sound arrives a moment later, a roar so deep it shakes your ribs. Birds leap from the trees, pterosaurs veer wildly, mid-flight herds bolt in panic. The ground trembles. Then impact. The horizon flares. For a second it's brighter than the sun. The earth convulses. A shockwave races through the air faster than sound, flattening forests, hurling rocks the size of houses. You're thrown backward, your ears filled with thunder and your lungs with dust. The light blinds you even through closed eyes. When you open them again, everything is red. The air burns. Trees ignite spontaneously, their sap hissing into flame. The shockwave ripples across the sea, turning waves into walls. In the distance, the coastline rises, a single monstrous wave curling toward the land. You hear the scream of wind, the crash of collapsing forests, the sound of the world itself breaking. Scientists still argue about the exact details of the impact, but they agree on this 66 million years ago. A rock the size of a city struck the Yucatan Peninsula at 20 kilometers per second. The energy released equaled billions of nuclear bombs. Within seconds, the dinosaur's kingdom was mortally wounded. You stagger through choking air, trying to breathe. The sky has gone from gold to ash. The smell is overwhelming, burning resin, sulfur, ozone, wet earth. Somewhere nearby, a triceratops lies on its side, chest heaving. Its horns are blackened from heat. It blinks once, as if asking what it did wrong. Then it's still. The tsunami arrives minutes later. You hear it before you see it, a deep rising hum that becomes a roar. Water engulfs the horizon. When it hits, it sweeps everything, trees, soil, life itself, back towards the sea. You grab hold of a rock and feel the current wrench at your arms, the salt stinging your eyes. You cling until it passes. When the water drains away, the world is unrecognizable. The forests are gone, the ground steams, the air is black with soot. You can't see the sun anymore, only a dull orange glow diffused through smoke. Ash begins to fall fine and relentless. A quirky tidbit: geologists have found a global layer of iridium, a rare metal common in asteroids, but scarce on Earth, marking this exact moment in the rock record. Every grain of that layer is a fingerprint of impact, a cosmic signature pressed into the planet's skin. You stumble across the plain that was once forest. Fires rage in every direction. The heat is suffocating. You find the charred remains of a nest eggs, cracked open, their contents cooked solid. The air hums faintly with static dust, and lightning feeding on one another. Then silence again. The fire has nothing left to burn. The wind dies. The temperature drops so suddenly you shiver. Soot and sulfur particles block the sun, completely plunging the earth into twilight. You sit in the ash breath, coming slow and uneven. Around you, the few survivors, birds, small mammals, insects, move like ghosts scavenging, searching. The giants are gone. The song of the Parasaurolophus will never echo again. The herds, the predators, the forests, they've all gone quiet. Scientists still debate how long the darkness lasted. Some say months, others decades. Photosynthesis failed. Temperatures plunged. Acid rain fell. The food chains unraveled from the bottom up. Yet in that ruin, the tiniest creatures endured the burrowers, the flyers, the seed-eaters. Life, stubborn as ever, refused extinction's invitation. You look up. The sky is grey and heavy. Ash drifts down like slow snow. You reach out your hand, the flakes melt against your skin, leaving black smudges. The air smells faintly metallic iridium dust settling into the soil of every future continent. The world you've walked through, the jungles, the oceans, the kingdoms of scale and feather, is gone. But not wasted. In that ruin lies everything still to come. A quirky note: some researchers believe the mammals that survived were no bigger than rats, yet within a few million years their descendants would repopulate the planet. Extinction, it seems, is only the planet exhaling before the next inhale. You rise coughing, brushing ash from your shoulders. The sea is still boiling far away, but the sky is beginning to pale near the horizon. Dawn again, weak season, smoky, uncertain. You realize that you're watching not just an ending, but a relay. The torch has fallen and smaller hands are already reaching for it. You kneel, press your palm to the scorched ground, and feel it faint but undeniable. The heartbeat is still there, slow, tired, but a present. You whisper to the silence you did it. You lasted a 50 million years, and from somewhere deep in the earth, perhaps from memory itself, the planet whispers back. That was only the first verse. The smoke has thinned, not gone, not yet, but softened enough that you can finally see the shape of the sun again, a dim ember behind grey gauze. It's weak, filtered through miles of dust and soot, but it's light. And after the dark that followed the impact, light feels like resurrection. You walk across what used to be forest. The ground is black and cracked, littered with twisted trunks and bones half buried in ash. Each step releases a puff of grey dust. The air smells faintly metallic and bitter, the ghost of volcanoes and cosmic violence lingering in your lungs. You crouch beside what once was a fern grove. The ferns are gone, of course, burned to powder, but in their place small green shoots are pushing through the soot. Delicate, fragile, miraculous. Ferns again. The same lineage reborn from buried spores. Scientists still argue how long it took for life to recover after the impact. Some say years for the skies to clear, others tens of thousands for ecosystems to stabilize. But the first signs of recovery, these tiny ferns, these stubborn green filaments, appeared within months. Nature wastes no time mourning. The silence that once smothered everything has changed too. It's no longer empty, it's listening. The earth hums softly under your boots, rebuilding from the inside out. Insects click in the air again. A small lizard darts between stones. You spot a bird, a real bird, hopping along a fallen branch, pecking at the ground. Its feathers are drab grey but shimmer faintly in the sun. It tilts its head as if puzzled by the sudden abundance of space. The world feels wider now, emptier but full of possibility. You wander to a riverbed or what remains of it. The water is muddy and sluggish, carrying ash downstream like dark silk. Along its edge, tiny mammals scurry, furred, quick, almost invisible. You kneel and watch as one emerges from a burrow. It's no larger than a mouse with large eyes and delicate hands. It sniffs the air, grabs a beetle and disappears again. This, you realize, is what survival looks like now, small, adaptable, invisible. The giants burned out, but the quiet ones endured. A quirky tidbit: paleontologists have found fossils of early post-impact mammals with stomach contents still intact, bits of insects, roots, and even ferns. They didn't just survive the apocalypse, they dined through it. The air is warming slightly as sunlight filters through the thinning dust. The sky is still a strange bruised colour amber near the horizon, grey overhead, but it's brighter than yesterday. You can almost feel the planet taking a deep breath for the first time in millennia. Then you notice the footprints. Not human, not dinosaur, something in between eras. Bird tracks, crisp and recent, etched in wet ash. You follow them and find a small flock feeding on dead fish stranded in the shallows. They're survivors of the lineage that began with Archaeopteryx. Their beaks curved, their movements precise. They hop and flutter wings half spread for balance. When one takes off, its shadow cuts across the ground like a memory of flight reborn. Scientists still debate whether all modern birds descended from a single surviving branch of small ground-dwelling theropods. The evidence suggests yes. If so, you're looking at the heirs to the dinosaurs, the last echoes of thunder repackaged as feathers and song. You sit on a stone, eyes closed, letting the warmth soak into your face. The silence is no longer dreadful. It feels earned. The earth is no longer ruled by muscle or size, but by patience. A distant rumble rolls across the plains, but it's not an explosion, just thunder, ordinary and harmless. The rains are returning. When the first drops fall, they sizzle on the still hot stones, releasing steam that smells faintly sweet like wet clay. The soil darkens, softens, welcomes the moisture. Within weeks, or what would be weeks in human time, plants will reclaim the ground. The first forests will rise again, not the towering jungles of before, but dense, low thickets of scrub and palm. Small creatures will dart between them unbothered by the absence of titans. And somewhere in those shadows, the first seeds of a new order will sprout. A quirky note fern spores are among the most durable biological structures on Earth. Some can remain dormant for years, waiting for heat, moisture, or even catastrophe to awaken them. It's almost poetic. Disaster isn't their enemy, but their invitation. The light grows stronger as the day unfolds. Clouds drift lazily across the sky, their edges golden. For the first time since the impact, you can hear the wind again, gentle, playful brushing through brittle reeds. You take a deep breath. The air still tastes faintly of smoke, but underneath it there's something new, green, damp, alive. You imagine how the next few million years will unfold. The mammals will grow bolder, their bodies larger, their minds sharper. Birds will fill the skies again, painting them with motion and sound. The reptiles will linger, the oceans will heal, and the world will learn a slower rhythm, less roar, more murmur. Scientists still argue what emotion to attach to the end of the dinosaurs, tragedy, inevitability, renewal. But standing here with your boots sinking into soft, reborn soil, the answer feels simple. It was all of them. Every ending carries the seed of its successor. You crouch and trace a line in the ash, a spiral, the same shape found in ammonites, galaxies, and the curl of fern fronds. The pattern of everything that rises, falls, and rises again. Overhead, one of the small birds circle once, twice, then flies off towards the horizon. Its wings catch the sunlight, flashing silver. For a moment, you swear you hear a faint echo of the past, a deep resonant call from a throat long gone. But when you listen harder, it's only the wind. You smile. The age of thunder is over. The age of whispers has begun. You wake to the sound of running water. Not the violent rush of flood or storm, just the steady murmur of a river finding its way again. The air is cleaner now. The sunlight feels soft instead of sharp. When you inhale, you smell mud-green shoots and something unfamiliar yet comforting, fresh decay. Life has remembered how to recycle. It has been several thousand years since the impact, though the Earth still looks like it's recovering from a bad fever. The land remains scarred, lava plains, craters, ridges of shattered stone, but colour has returned. Mosses paint the rocks in velvet green. Ferns unroll their fronds like delicate banners. Flowers, tentative and pale, bloom between cracks. Everything small is winning. You walk through what used to be a forest of giants. Now the trees are knee-high. The silence once filled by thunderous footsteps has been replaced by the rustle of tiny things skittering, chirping, whispering. Evolution has turned the volume down. A movement catches your eye, something darting between ferns, then another and another. You freeze, crouch, and see them clearly. Small mammals, no larger than rabbits, their fur sleek and glossy, their noses twitching. They move in groups, snuffling through the underbrush, digging for seeds and insects. You recognize them instantly, not their species, but their story. They are the heirs to the world the dinosaurs built. Scientists still argue about which lineage survived, the placentals, the marsupials, the monotremes, but the fossils tell the truth in fragments. Teeth, tiny jaws, ankle bones, the architecture of persistence. These little creatures who once hid beneath the feet of monsters now have the whole planet as their playground. One of them, bolder than the rest, climbs a fallen log. It stands on its hind legs, sniffing the air. Sunlight glints off its eyes. For the first time you see curiosity, unburdened by fear. It's not looking for predators anymore. It's wondering what's next. A quirky tidbit: within just a few million years of the extinction, mammals had diversified into dozens of shapes, diggers, climbers, swimmers and gliders. It's as if evolution had been waiting backstage with a dozen new blueprints ready to start construction the moment the curtains lifted. The forest thickens as you walk. Young trees stretch upward, competing for light. Vines tangle between trunks. The soundscape hums with insects, frogs, and the first true birdsong's clear liquid complex. A small bird lands near you, feathers iridescent blue. It sings 3 notes, pauses, then repeats. You can almost sense intelligence behind the pattern. An echo of the old Parasaurolophus calls reduced to melody. You pause beside a stream kneeling to drink. The water is cool and sweet, tasting faintly of minerals and memory. Small fish flash below the surface, their scales reflecting sunlight like coins. You watch them dart and turn, and it strikes you that these descendants of survivors have no idea what they inherited, a world rebuilt from ash. Scientists still debate why mammals rose so quickly after the dinosaurs' fall. Some say luck, others timing. But it might just be the simplest answer: opportunity. With no shadows of giants to hide beneath, life finally had room to stretch. You follow the stream as it winds through the valley. The hills are green now, the soil rich. You pass a clearing filled with small, hoofed creatures, early ungulates, ancestors of horses, cows and deer. They graze cautiously, ears twitching at every sound. Nearby, a primitive primate clings to a low branch, watching you with wide, curious eyes. Its hands tiny, dexterous, human-like wrap around the bark. It blinks once, twice, then vanishes into the foliage. You smile. The future is already rehearsing. A quirky note: fossils of Purgatorius, one of the earliest known primates, date to just a few 100,000 years after the extinction event. That's evolutionary speedrunning life, evolving new complexity before the ash had even settled. As the sun climbs higher, the air warms and fills with scent. Flowers attract the first modern bees. Butterflies, fragile and improbable, drift across the path. You stop and listen. The world hums not with the heavy percussion of giants, but with strings and wind. Evolution has rewritten its score in a major key, but not all echoes of the past are gone. You catch sight of a large shape moving slowly in a distant swamp. Broad back, ridged tail, an alligator, ancient and unchanged. It blinks lazily, utterly unimpressed by the chaos that came and went. Some creatures didn't need to evolve. They had already perfected the art of waiting. The day fades into gold. You sit on a stone near the water's edge, watching the light ripple through the new green. The silence feels gentle now, not hollow. The planet has shifted its pace from spectacle to subtlety. Scientists still debate what intelligence truly means. Is it problem-solving, emotion, memory? Or is it the ability to persist through change, to remake yourself every time the world forgets your name? If so, then every creature here is a genius. The first stars appear as twilight settles. The air cools, carrying the scent of wet soil and blooming flowers. A chorus of frogs begins rhythmic and steady. A bird answers with a single lingering note that fades into night. You realize the earth doesn't need to roar anymore. It hums, it sees, it remembers. You close your eyes, imagining the millennia to come, the mammals growing larger, more varied. The primates finding their balance, the ocean stabilizing, then deepening with life again. You can almost feel the pulse of what's coming next, the flicker of awareness, the slow climb toward reflection. The dinosaurs had ruled for 50 million years. The mammals will take their turn now, not out of conquest but inheritance. The river murmurs beside you, carrying fragments of ash spores and beginnings downstream. The stars brighten, unclouded at last. For the first time since the impact, the sky looks familiar again, quiet, infinite, full of promise. You whisper into the cool air. They're gone, but they left the world ready. The night answers with a single sound, the soft flutter of wings fading into the dark. Dawn comes like a breath held too long. The horizon blushes pinken and gold, the river catches the light like liquid glass, and the world, new raw and impossibly young again, feels steady for the first time in ages. You're standing on the shoulder of the Paleocene, the first chapter after the Age of Dinosaurs. The earth has cleared its throat, smoothed its scars, and started humming a different melody. The giants are gone, but the earth doesn't mourn. It reorganizes. The forests once dominated by cycads and conifers now burst with broadleaf trees, walnuts, magnolias, willows. The air smells damp and sweet, the perfume of rotten growth mingling like incense. Each step you take sinks into soil soft as a memory, rich with the dust of what came before. You walk along a riverbank where vines hang thick and tangled, their flowers large and waxy. Bright beetles crawl over them, wings flashing turquoise and gold. Dragonflies patrol the air like tiny helicopters. The world hums alive with small ambitions. A rustle in the grass catches your attention. You freeze, expecting perhaps another mammal. Instead, something reptilian slithers into view, a snake. Sleek, muscular, unbothered. It pauses to taste the air with its tongue before vanishing into shadow. The reptiles may have lost the crown, but they haven't lost the map. Farther ahead, you spot movement among the ferns, a group of small mammals foraging under the trees. They look like badgers with longer legs and curious eyes. Panta lambda, one of the first large mammals roughly the size of a sheep. You watch as they dig at roots, noses to the ground, tails flicking. They move like creatures just learning confidence, stretching into a world that finally feels safe. Scientists still argue why mammals expanded so rapidly after the extinction. Was it intelligence, warm blood? The ability to nurse their young, maybe it was all of that, or maybe it was simply that survival had made them adaptable. When everything collapses, the flexible thrive. One of the Panta lambda lifts its head, sniffing the air. Its fur glistens in the dawn light. It stares for a long moment at you, or perhaps at the horizon, before returning to its meal. Its indifference is oddly humbling. Life doesn't pause to admire itself, it just keeps moving forward. A quirky tidbit: within just a few million years of the dinosaurs, fall mammals had reclaimed every niche: diggers, climbers, grazers, swimmers. Fossils show a burst of experimentation, as if evolution had emptied a box of spare parts and said, "Try everything." You move uphill, following the scent of rain-soaked bark. The forest opens into a meadow dotted with flowers. The colours are brighter than anything the Cretaceous dared: violet, crimson, and white. Butterflies drift between them, their wings patterned like stained glass. Bees hum in steady rhythm. A bird sings somewhere unseen, a pure fluid note that hangs in the air like a promise. You smile. The air is warmer here, the breeze gentle. For the first time in this long journey, you feel something that might be called peace. And then you hear it, a low, distant rumble. Not thunder. Hoofbeats. You turn and see them cresting the hill, a herd of Coryphodon, large semi-aquatic mammals shaped like a mix between a hippo and a tapir. Their skin gleams dark grey, their tusks small but sharp. They wade into a shallow marsh, grunting softly to each other as they feed on water plants. They're not majestic in the dinosaur sense. They don't tower, they don't roar, but they move with purpose. You can sense in them something steady, enduring. The future of the Earth will be built on this kind of quiet strength, the kind that doesn't dominate but endures. Scientists still debate whether mammals ever felt the absence of dinosaurs. Did they sense the missing shadows, the vanished roars? Probably not. Life doesn't remember absence, it fills it. A quirky note: early Paleocene mammals, like Coryphodon, had surprisingly small brains compared to their bodies. But they didn't need cleverness to succeed. The world itself was forgiving now: less competition, fewer catastrophes. Intelligence, that strange luxury, could evolve slowly. You walk among them carefully. The ground squelches underfoot, warm and fragrant. A dragonfly lands on your wrist, its transparent wings catching the sunlight in perfect symmetry. You stand still, watching it, realizing how much of this world now depends on the small and delicate. As the day wears on, clouds drift overhead. The light softens, shadows stretch. A cool breeze rises from the east, carrying the scent of distant rain. You find a fallen log, sit down and watch the meadow breathe. You think about how much has been lost, how the dinosaurs once seemed eternal. But eternity, you realize, is a sepultivity, not a stare. The Earth doesn't favour permanence, it favours renewal. Somewhere behind you, you hear movement in the trees, a rustle, a call, a splash. The ecosystem is awake again, and it doesn't need an audience. You close your eyes and listen, birdsong layered over wind, the rhythmic croak of frogs, the soft murmur of the river. The symphony has changed instruments, but the melody is familiar. Life never stopped singing, it just changed key. Scientists still argue whether evolution has direction or just pattern, whether the rise of mammals and eventually humans was destiny or coincidence. But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe life isn't a march towards something, it's a dance. Every step, every fall, every resurgence part of the same rhythm. The sun begins to set, bleeding orange through the clouds. The meadow glows, each blade of grass outlined in gold. The Coryphodon wade deeper into the marsh, their reflections rippling across the surface. The first stars blink above, faint but steady. You lean back, hands pressed into the soft earth. The soil is warm, alive with unseen movement, worms, roots, microbes, the architects of tomorrow. You feel the pulse of it all beneath your fingertips. And in that pulse you hear the echo of everything that came before: the roar of the T-Rex, the song of Parasaurolophus, the whisper of ferns reborn from ash. It's all still here, folded into the living heartbeat of the world. You take one last deep breath and whisper half to yourself, half to the earth, "We're next, aren't we?" The wind stirs the grass as if to answer. Not yes, not no, just soon. The air is thick with the scent of rain-soaked leaves and distant thunder. The world has aged another 10 million years while you blink. The Paleocene has deepened into the Eocene, and what was once recovery has turned to Renaissance. Everything is taller, louder, more confident. The earth has found its rhythm again. You stand at the edge of a tropical forest so dense the light struggles to reach the ground. The humidity clings to your skin, heavy as breath. You can hear life pulsing in every direction, the drone of insects, the flutter of wings, the chirr of frogs. Above you, vines loop between branches like veins of the planet, feeding a canopy alive with motion. A rustle draws your eyes upward. A shape leaps between trees, furred, long-tailed, delicate. It lands, pauses, and blinks at you through the leaves. Notharctus, one of the earliest true primates. Its fingers curl around a branch with uncanny familiarity. The face is small but expressive, the eyes forward and curious. You feel the strangest flicker of recognition, like glimpsing an old family resemblance in a faded photo. Scientists still debate how primates rose to prominence. Some think the explosion of flowering plants drove them upward, offering fruit and insects in the canopy. Others suggest their grasping hands and colour vision were simply lucky accidents that became destiny. Whatever the reason, these small creatures are the first to look at the world and truly see it. The Notharctus cocks its head, then bounds away, disappearing into the green shadows. You follow the sound of dripping water until the trees open into a clearing. Before you stretches a shallow lake mirror, still except for ripples where something large just submerged. The surface gleams with lily pads and floating blossoms, each a masterpiece of symmetry. You step closer, crouching to touch the water. It's warm, almost blood temperature, alive with minnows and darting tadpoles. Something brushes your fingers, a soft, rubbery snout. You jerk back just as a pair of nostrils break the surface. Then eyes, then teeth. A crocodile, of course. Older than extinction, unchanged by fire, impact, or time. It blinks once unimpressed, then slides back beneath the water. You laugh softly. Some creatures don't evolve. They simply endure. A quirky tidbit, crocodiles have survived every mass extinction since the Triassic with minimal change. Their design is so efficient that evolution has had nothing to improve. If perfection exists in biology, it's shaped like patience and hides in murky water. You rise and look beyond the lake. The landscape rolls into wide plains dotted with palm trees and ferns. Herds of new mammals graze there, Brontotherium, massive herbivores with forked horns like stone sculptures, and Coryphodon, the hippo-like descendants of the Paleocene. They move slowly, almost ceremonially, under the weight of their own newness. This is no longer a world of reptiles, it's the age of warm blood and long gestation of nurture and a memory. You watch a mother Brontotherium guide her calf to a stream, the little one's legs trembling with each step. When it slips, she steadies it with her flank. The tenderness is quiet, instinctive, ancient. For millions of years, life survived by tooth and muscle. Now it experiments with care. The wind shifts, carrying a scent that's both familiar and alien, flowers, fruit decay, all mixed into the humid air. The forest hums with colour, butterflies the size of your hand, beetles polished like obsidian hummingbirds flashing iridescent light. You realise the sound filling your ears isn't noise, it's collaboration. Every buzz, chirp and flutter is part of a conversation older than words. Scientists still debate whether evolution has purpose or merely direction. But standing here, it's hard to believe in randomness. There's too much symmetry, too much rhythm. The world feels orchestrated, improvised, perhaps, but always musical. A shadow passes overhead. You look up and freeze. For a moment your heart forgets its job. A silhouette glides across the sky, vast wings outstretched. It's no bird. The shape is too heavy, the motion too slow. Quetzalcoatlus, last of the giant pterosaurs, banking gracefully over the trees. You hadn't expected to see one still alive here at the edge of their age. It's thinner now, worn, but still magnificent, a ghost of the Jurassic sky refusing extinction's invitation. You watch it soar in silence until it vanishes into cloud. You can't help but smile. Evolution doesn't always replace, sometimes it just overlaps, one song fading as another begins. The afternoon thickens into gold. The air shimmers with heat and thunder murmurs somewhere distant. You walk along a ridge overlooking the forest canopy, now glowing in shades of jade and amber. Far below the river snakes through the green reflecting fragments of sky. You stop to rest, placing your hand on a tree trunk warm from the sun. The bark is rough, pulsing faintly with life. You can almost feel the water rising through it, the slow, steady heartbeat of the forest. Everything breathes together: roots, air, rain, flesh. A quirky note: scientists have found fossilized pollen records showing that during the Eocene global temperatures were so high that palm trees grew in what's now Alaska. The world was tropical from pole to pole. For a few million years, the planet itself exhaled in lush, humid relief. As the sun sets, the forest glows. Fireflies spark in the thick air. The calls of frogs blend with the distant trumpets of the herbivores. Overhead, the first stars appear timid against the afterglow. You sit legs folded, breathing slowly, letting the hum of this reborn world settle into your bones. The earth feels older, but not tired, just wiser. It has burned, frozen, drowned, and healed. It has raised empires of bone and toppled them into ash. And through it all, it has kept one simple habit: it grows back. You close your eyes, listening to the slow percussion of raindrops starting to fall. The scent of petrichor deepens. Somewhere in the distance, a primate calls softly, a strange lilting sound, part cry, part laughter. You recognize it immediately, though you shouldn't. It's the first echo of something that will one day call itself human. Thank you. Subscribe now and don't miss what's to come.